Happy Monday. Welcome in. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Plenty of basketball to talk about on this next 4-hour shift here at Jocks 94.5. We appreciate you tuning us in. Hope everyone had a nice weekend. Landrum is off this week. He is in his winter home in Colorado. I'm sure he's skiing and snowboarding and doing all those fun things that Landrum likes to do in his off time.
I would imagine so, yes.
Yes, so he will join us back next Monday. But we've got 3/4 of the crew here, Molly, Conrad, and myself. And Molly, this is the only time that I'm going to ask you to say hello to the audience because I think the audience will be able to tell real quick that you have been under the weather and now you're sniffling into the microphone.
No, I'm not crying. Hi, guys.
So Molly is here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
hear you.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm trying.
Is that Molly or Deborah?
Oh, no, it's Deborah today.
Okay.
So we won't ask a lot of her behind the mic today as she has been battling a little bit of something over the weekend, but she's a trooper.
That's right.
Just like when she was at Nebraska, she played hurt a lot. So she's here in spirit. So she will.
The cold can't get her down. She's used to it.
Oh, never.
No. So you can turn your mic off now. I won't bother you anymore. Okay. There we go. It was a big weekend for all of our teams that we cover here on Three Man Front. You had Alabama getting rid of that 2-game losing streak, get that bad taste out of their mouth. Auburn had a little bit of a more difficult game against Georgia. They win there. UAB, a big win at home yesterday against Temple. They're now 11-3 in the American. And Sanford gets a big win at home. So all 4 of the teams that we spent a lot of time talking about, Conrad, on this show, they come off with big wins.
Absolutely. And I know we don't talk about Jacksonville State a lot either, but they're currently in first place in Conference USA, doing a great job of things there as well. So, no, it was another great weekend, and it's nice because, we've had a couple bumps in the road. You mentioned, obviously, Alabama having back-to-back losses, Sanford stubbing their toe against Furman. We've had some ups and downs, so it's good to get back on the winning side of things. And, certainly for Alabama getting another top 25 win, Auburn maybe getting a little tested coming off of that Arkansas game, another game very similar where maybe a little closer than you would have expected. But, hey, at this point in the season, as Bruce Pearl said after the win over Georgia, it is survive and advance, and that is certainly true for all the teams here in the state.
Well, this time of the year, that's what you have to do. You got to get ready for tournament basketball. But Auburn wins against Georgia 82-70. Auburn shot 43% for the game. But it was impressive because they almost shot 60% in the second half, but they missed 16 3-point shots. They shot 27% from behind the arc, but Janai Broome in the second half, he was just unstoppable. 19 points, 8 rebounds. That was just in the second half. Finished with 31 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. He played 36 minutes of a 40-minute basketball game. Just another very impressive performance, Conrad, by Janai Broome, who – to me, is the National Player of the Year.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's been absolutely tearing it up lately, and still, we're sitting here going, man, is he 100% yet, or maybe he's like 85, 90% now, whatever percent he is, it doesn't matter.
That's scary to think that he's not 100%.
Exactly.
And he's pouring in 31 points against a quality opponent.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, he leads the team in points, leads the team in rebounds, ties for the lead in assist with Chad Baker-Mazara with 4 of those. You just can't say enough about what he means for this team. And it certainly was a case when Auburn not having a great shooting performance. You mentioned it, the 27% shooting from deep, but it really felt like on Saturday, it was a game where, give credit to Georgia, but one team had Janai Broome and the other team didn't. And the team that had him ultimately was able to pull it out and win.
So think about this. It was Broome's 11th game of at least 20 points and 10 rebounds this season. Broome's 31 points is the most he scored in an Auburn uniform, so that was a career high for him. Denver Jones continues his good play. He had 17 points. Chad Baker-Mazara had 11. Miles Kelly had 11. Georgia's forward, Asa Newell, he's the one that kind of kept them in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He had 20 points and 4 rebounds. But this is the 5th time in the last 8 seasons that Auburn has swept Georgia during the regular season.
Yeah, I think Bruce Pearl said after the game they're 13-16, I believe, in their last 16 games against Georgia, which, it's not football, but there's still that rivalry there, and you certainly want to be able to add to that total. I thought another thing that was impressive about the win was for the last few weeks, it feels like every Auburn game we're talking about, obviously, Janai Broome and what he does, but we're talking about Chaney Johnson, and whether it's Chaney Johnson going on, scoring 8, 9, 10 points in a row for Auburn to kind of give them a spark in the second half. He's been so good for them. And for him to be in foul trouble like he was essentially the entire game on Saturday, he only goes for 11 minutes and 4 points. But to be able to overcome that and have more guys step up, I thought that was a really good sign for Auburn, because he's come through big for them here lately. And to be able to do that when he's struggling and not having the performance you're used to, I thought was very good sign for Auburn.
Auburn only had 8 turnovers for the game. They took care of the basketball. It was the 16th time this season the Tigers have had a single-digit turnover, including 6 times in the last 8 games. So they're taking care of the basketball. You remember the game before, we were talking about how sloppy they were playing at times, but they took care of it. 25 wins now, okay? 25 games in the last 6 of the last 8 seasons for Auburn. That is the best mark in the Southeastern Conference.
It's remarkable.
So what Bruce Pearl has been able to do has been extremely impressive. The 68th consecutive sellout at Neville Arena, 9,000 plus in attendance. So that home court advantage in the jungle, that is something that opponents go there and they walk out of there with a loss.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to give credit to Georgia, going and being able to put up the fight that they did. In the first half, it was just brutal for them. They had no offense whatsoever. And I mean, holding Auburn to 29 in the first half, you have to think if you're Georgia, that's exactly what you wanted to see on Saturday. But unfortunately, the offensive production just didn't match it for you. And, similar to the Arkansas game, right? This was a team coming in knowing if they win this game, being Georgia, if you win this game on Saturday, you probably just stamped your ticket to the NCAA tournament, because that'd be such an impressive win. And for Auburn to have that target on their back and know, you had this against Arkansas last week, and now you had it against Georgia. Are we going to see that against a Mississippi State team coming up this week that's maybe hit a couple bumps in the road? But every team is looking at this as, if we can beat Auburn, we're going to get in the tournament. That's going to be our final cherry on top of our resume. And for Auburn to be able to hold them off when they're not playing their best is certainly good.
Let's hear Bruce Pearl after the game. Impressive victory against Georgia in Neville.
It's just about survival, right? That's what it's really about. The league is so good and so competitive. And to see Georgia come in here and play so hard and had a great game plan. They played a little 3-2 zone or 1-2-2 zone. Haven't played it hard at all year. I told Coach White I thought that was a great call because it caught us off guard. And we managed to find a few things that we could do that was good. We scored 80 points, 59 in the second half. We made some good adjustments in the second half. But that was a good move. We're great against zone. Just hadn't prepared at all for it. I thought Demery and Asa are 2 of the best players in our league. They played like it again tonight. We got in foul trouble. Denver getting 4 fouls and Chaney, living in foul trouble puts a lot of pressure on the rest of our guys and on the bench. So we got to do a good job, especially when we know we're playing against somebody that likes to draw foul. That's tough for Denver. Like Demery's good. Demery's a good player, and but he dives into contact. He throws his head up and a whistle blows, and all of a sudden the best defender in the league is sitting there in foul trouble. Like you got to sometimes you got to referee the best players. Like Denver Joe's one of the best players on the floor, and he got in some foul trouble without a whole lot. So beating Georgia matters to Auburn. It matters to me. I believe that's 13 out of the last 16, and that's a pretty good stretch against one of your rivals.
Big win for Auburn as they take out the Georgia Bulldogs. The score is not indicative of how close that game was.
No, Georgia definitely gave them everything that they wanted. It was just, Auburn being able to kind of separate a little at the end. And it was one of those games, especially if you were, like us and you're trying to watch the Alabama game that came on right afterwards, felt like the final 2-3 minutes of this game took about 30, 40 minutes.
That's all college basketball these days.
I know. It took forever.
Let's go review if the ball got tipped or, it's just constant.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ridiculous. But anyway, Auburn does get the win. Meanwhile, Alabama, it took them 29 seconds to finally grab their first lead, Conrad, in over 80 minutes of basketball.
Then it went right away.
And then all of a sudden it disappeared again because they fell behind 20-9. But then after that, this is an amazing number. After they fell behind 20-9, they outscored Kentucky 87-63 for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, watching it, it seemed like Alabama's defense, they were getting after it. And for whatever reason, they just had that really malaise at the very beginning, and you fall behind again, and you're like going, what is the deal here? But you could tell the intensity was brought up back defensively, and they finally started hitting their shots. And once again, you're seeing Janai Broome do what he does for Auburn, and you have seen the last two games what Mark Sears is doing for Alabama, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the first time in his career he's had back-to-back 30-point games. If I'm not mistaken, that's the first player in FBS to do that this year in Division I, to have back-to-back 30-point games. He's been as advertised. This is the Mark Sears you thought you were going to get the entire season, and now he's playing his best ball here late in the season, and you just can't say enough about what he was able to do. He gives you 30 points. He's perfect from the charity stripe, 11 for 11. He throws in 4 assists, 4 rebounds to go over with it. But I think the most important part, arguably, is only 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
And because we know that's been a big issue for not only him, it's been an issue for Phylon. He had 5 turnovers on Saturday. Grant Nelson throughout the season. That's been a problem for them. And so for Mark Sears to be as good as he was scoring the basketball, but to only have 2 turnovers, I think that's probably what made Nate Oates happiest about that game. But it was Aiden Holloway off the bench giving you 19 points, finding that spark that he had through the majority of SEC play, and kind of lost that the last couple of games. Chris Youngblood looked like a confident shooter out there taking those threes. He goes 3 for 5. I think this is probably the best game that Cliff Amori has played at Alabama. It's pretty wild to think of, all the hype he had coming in. He has 11 points, 15 rebounds. That's the first double-double he's had at Alabama.
That's crazy.
The first one that he's had all season long. He won the Hard Hat Award, so much deserving for him. But yeah, a great all-around effort for an Alabama team that, make no mistake, at least in my opinion, this was a must-win game coming off of back-to-back losses. You had to win this one to get some confidence going into this final stretch, and credit to them for, like you said, Pat, I don't know what the breakdown is. Maybe Nick Kelly can give us an update, but I feel like the second half defense you saw from Alabama against Kentucky was the best second half defense they've played all year in conference play.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sears. He becomes only the second SEC player in the last 20 seasons with consecutive 30-point games against top 25 opponents. So it just does not happen a lot. It was the 65th time in Mark Sears' career that he has gone for at least 20 or more points in a game. You mentioned Holloway. He had 19. Tide had 15 turnovers. I think they had 10 in the first half. So they kind of sharpened that up a little bit in the second half. And they only missed 6 layups as compared to the number of layups that they missed against Mizzou and Auburn. So they get the big win. Bama now 22-5, 11-3 in the SEC. Kentucky falls to 500. It was interesting listening to Nate Oates post game where he was talking about, if you give me low effort, if you ignore the scouting report, you turn the ball over, that's the way it's going to be moving forward. You're going to sit on the bench. Don't know why it took this long for him to come up with that tenet of understanding, but that's where we are.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you've gotten, I guess, a lighter version of that of him throughout the season. Of course, we've heard of him, talking about how he tries to mix up the lineup coming out of half for a while because he didn't like the way that they were starting defensively coming out of halftime. But I mean, that's what you need from this team right now is you need the guys that are going to step up and play defense. I mean, he said after the game, he thinks that Mark Sears is playing the best defensively that he's played throughout his entire time there at Alabama. And that's what you need, right? Is you need the leadership. You need these guys to step up. I think Grant Nelson left a little something to be desired on the floor on Saturday. But when you look at whatever happened in the, I guess the under 16 timeout, the first media timeout you had in the game, there was clearly a switch that flipped from that point on, whether it was Nate Oates or another one of the coaching staff, or it was Mark Sears or Cliff or whoever in that huddle essentially saying, all right, this isn't good enough. We're going to have to step it up a notch. And whatever they did from that point on, it worked for them. You just hope that you're going to be able to carry that moving forward because we've seen this, right? We've seen games or halves of games where Alabama, you look at them defensively and go, okay, that's where you want to be. It's just consistency and being able to do that night in and night out. And that's going to largely determine, I think, how far they can make it in March.
This is Reaction Monday on Three Man Front. As customary, we'd love to hear from you at 1-800-239-WJOX. The Courtesy GMC text line is open at 205-834-9450. When we come back on Three Man Front, we'll recap a big weekend for UAB and Samford. Where does Joe Lunardi now have Alabama and Auburn? Obviously, Auburn has not moved one iota, but Alabama is falling the wrong direction, according to Joe Lunardi. We'll get into all that on Reaction Monday. This is Jocks 94.5. It is Reaction Monday here on Jocks 94.5. Phone calls are coming in at 1-800-239-WJOX. We will get to those momentarily. UAB gets a big win yesterday in the American Athletic Conference, 80-64 against Temple. 5 UAB Blazers finished in double figures, led by Bradley Ezewiro with 15. Yaxel Lindeborg, man, he is just putting up an incredible season. He had 13 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, dished out 8 assists. Lindeborg is now number 2 in all of college basketball in double doubles this year. He has 19, number 2 in America.
That's 9 in a row for him.
Impressive. The Blazers have now won 11 straight games when they score at least 80 points. UAB is also 16-3 when scoring at least 80 points this season. Blazers 18-9, 11-3 in the American. They head to Wichita State on Thursday, and then they got a big one coming up on Sunday against Memphis at Bartow. Meanwhile, over at the Pete Hanna Center, Sanford wins against Western Carolina 93-72. Trey Ford had 24 points. Bulldogs finished their home schedule 13-3. They're now 21-8 on the season, 11-5 in the SoCon. That's good for third place. Thursday, they're at VMI. So a couple road games, and then all of a sudden we got championship basketball. We got tournament starting, and the SoCon will be one of the first ones to get underway. So Samford, UAB, Alabama, Auburn, you mentioned Jacksonville State, all big wins over the weekends. Let's go to the phones at 1-800-239-WJOX. AJ joins us on this Reaction Monday. Hey, AJ, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Yeah, as a Bama basketball fan, a long-term Bama basketball fan in my 40s, it's crazy to me that there's panic over losing a 1 seed. That's just kind of the fact that we've gotten to that is amazing. But I do want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on something. If I had to complain about something with Nate Oates, and I'm not a basketball X's and O's expert, like maybe, I know probably know more about football, but does it not seem like we have zero low post planned offense? Like, it's like we play these tough teams like Ole Miss and what Tennessee's going to do, and Auburn. They're going to get into our guards, and then and when the game gets kind of out of hand, where all we're doing is dribble driving and trying to kick out the threes, and the teams that have been able to successfully shut that down, does it not seem like we need a back to the basket element with a low post guy to keep that honest? And as I'm thinking about Nate Oates, we have zero of that. And you look at like Amori, that first double-double of the season. Well, that's why, because he has zero planned offense. The only guy on the team that can even do it at all is actually Diabate and maybe Nelson every now and then. What do you guys think about that? If we had, I know that's not Oates style, but if we had a little bit of low post, play to keep teams out of our guards a little bit, that could be. I think that's the difference. But I don't think Nate Oates does that. It's like he doesn't know how to coach a center at all.
I appreciate the call, AJ. No, I'm inclined to agree with that. And I think part of it too is, they even mentioned this on the broadcast. I mentioned this in a lot of games, but the success rate for Alabama offensively, when they get a touch to whether it's Cliff or Grant or Diabate, somebody in the paint, and you're able to sort of run the offense through that and get more movement as opposed to, Mark Sears dribbling it up at the top of the key for 10 seconds and then trying to make a move. That is where Alabama is at its best. That's when it's easier for you to find your open threes and get your shooters better looks. And for whatever reason, that has been a problem for Alabama this year. And I think part of that, and something we've talked about before is, it just feels like they don't really know what to do with Grant Nelson at times. Because, you look at him on the year, he's shooting 26% from three on the year, which is bad. It's just bad. And for whatever reason, it feels like with him and Cliff on the court at the same time, they're just, I don't know if there's a disconnect or just the style of offense, because as we know, Nate Oates just essentially lets them roll the ball out there and do what they want to do. They don't really call plays traditionally, but it just seems like they haven't really figured out that chemistry. And I would like to see Grant as somebody that attacks the rim more, because that's where he's had more success. And for whatever reason, that just doesn't seem to be something that he's particularly comfortable with. But, maybe, seeing Cliff get to double digits and have his first double-double of the season, maybe that kind of sparks something with him. But yeah, no, I certainly think that moving forward, you're going to need to get more offensive production down there in the paint. And, you're fortunate, you have some guards like Mark Sears is pretty good around the basket. Aiden Holloway's been really good from two. LeBaron Philon's pretty good at getting to the rim. And so that can kind of make up for it. But no, that's been a problem that Alabama's had for the last couple of years, really. Outside the year you had Bediako, you just really haven't had that presence down there.
Well, the other problem is what I've noticed is that if there's a team that has like big guards that are physical in regards to going up against Holloway and Sears, that presents a problem. Auburn had it. You saw Mizzou had it and really got in their face and really played good defense. You're going to see it when you play Tennessee upcoming very soon. Let's hear from Nate Oates after the game, in which he details how impressive the performance was by Mark Sears and where his basketball team currently is.
Thought our guys did a good job once we kind of dug ourselves a hole, and you got to give Kentucky a ton of credit to come out like they did, knowing that they were down potties. And I think Coach Pope's done a really good job kind of galvanizing that crew, having them ready to go. I mean, you look at some guys that weren't in the rotation earlier, like Colin Chandler. Shoot, I mean, he has +7 when he's in the game tonight. Thought he played great. He hit the big 3 late. I mean, Noah's had big games. You know, they've had multiple guys. You know, Travis Perry steps up, scores double digits for him. You know, and he wasn't playing that heavy before. So they've had guys step up, play well. You know, Carr, we kind of chose not to guard him, which, you know, we were supposed to guard him when he had the ball, just help off a lot more, and he ends up burning us for 3-3. So, you know, for him to have 17, I thought it was pretty good too. So I give them a bunch of credit, but thought our guys, you know, didn't really panic. We get down 12, we just stick with it. You know, we started getting stops. You know, our defensive efficiency numbers after that first 4 minutes, you know, after the first 4-minute media timeout, the next 16 minutes of the first half, we held them to a .8, and we scored 24 points on the next 30 possessions. So the defense from that point on was where we needed it to be. Now, why we're not starting better, you know, I got to go look at the video again. I thought we'd have a little bit better start, you know, where we still have turnover issues. We had 15 turnovers, only 14 assists. So, you know, part of putting LeBaron in the starting lineup was allowing Mark to get off the ball a little bit more like he'd done with Estrada last year. I thought it's worked for Mark. I mean, he's back-to-back 30-point games for the first time in his career, and it's been pretty efficient too. So I think that made sense. We just need LeBaron to stop turning it over as much as he is. And, you know, I thought Holloway, you know, pairing him a little bit more with Sears too, letting him create a little bit, even though he didn't have an assist. I thought, you know, he ended up scoring 19 off the bench. Thought he's been good. So, you know, Sears is playing the best basketball I've seen him play since he's been here on both sides of the ball.
There you go. His thoughts on Mark Sears and his team being able to overcome another slow start, falling behind 20-9, but they took care of business the rest of the way. AJ was talking about a lot of people might be freaking out about Alabama maybe falling off the 1 line. Well, according to Joe Lunardi, Alabama did fall 1 back. They were the number 2 overall seed in his rankings over the weekend, but after all the action that took place on Saturday, Duke is now the number 2 overall team. Alabama is number 3. Florida is number 4. Meanwhile, other SEC teams on the 2 seeds would be only Tennessee. Then you got Kentucky and Texas A&M would be on the 3 line. And then no SEC team on the 4 line. But Mizzou and Mississippi State would be on the 5. So as of this moment, according to Joe Lunardi, the tournament locks are as follows: Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, A&M, Kentucky, Mizzou, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. Bubble teams that are currently in, according to Lunardi: Texas, Vandy. Arkansas would be one of the last 4 in. Georgia, after their loss to Auburn, they are out. So if you're keeping score at home, that are 13 SEC teams that would get the invite.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's right there on the bubble as well. I think the interesting thing is obviously Alabama and Tennessee are going to play this weekend, and it looks like, at least according to Lunardi, let's say they both win these midweek matchups, you could potentially look at a scenario where if Tennessee beats Alabama in that game, maybe they jump up to the 1 seed and Alabama then falls back and takes Tennessee's spot as the highest rated number 2 seed. But I mean, again, we're sitting here and it's, you know, we've just kind of been waiting for things to fall off. And, you know, 14 teams getting in was always kind of a pipe dream. I don't know if any of us actually thought that was really going to happen. It looked nice, but I mean, 13 looks very realistic. I think 12 certainly looks realistic, but I mean, 13 right now. And you do have Georgia as that last or one of those first 4 out. So if they can get a big win here down the stretch, maybe that puts them back in. You get up to 14. But
well, I mean, if Oklahoma keeps doing what they did this weekend against Mississippi State, then all of a sudden 13 looks as solid as 12.
Absolutely.
Because I most definitely did not see that happening.
Did you see the teeth?
I did see the teeth.
Molly did. Well, we don't have to share that with her. I know she doesn't like those things. That was awful, though. That's one of the most horrific things. I mean, I know we've seen, you know, bones sticking out of legs and things like that, but somebody like picking up individual teeth off of a court, I haven't seen that in a while. Not great.
More three-man front on this Reaction Monday, 1-800-239-WJOX, the courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. It is 10:33, Jocks 94.5 on this Reaction Monday. Thanks for tuning us in. Landrum's out this week. He'll be back with us next Monday. Molly, Conrad, myself with you until 2 o'clock, take you up to the Paul Feinbaum Show. Golston Tree Service, they have been very busy over the last couple weeks, but they have always got room to take your phone call at 205-337-4018. They have been down at Logan Martin Lake. They've been dealing with some downed trees and some home damage. They've also been in Metro Birmingham dealing with a lot of issues over the mountain and north of town. They can take care of you today. They've got a licensed arborist that is ready to give advice and ready to help you out and set forth a plan moving forward on your property to make sure that you don't have any of those trees that end up on your cars in the driveway or your back deck or whatever the situation may be. 205-337-4018. From the smallest jobs to the largest jobs, they can take care of you today. And the important part of it, they've got 24-hour emergency storm work service. So if something happens in the middle of the night, you call them, they'll come take care of you. 205-337-4018. That is Golston Tree Service. Back to the phones we go, 1-800-239-WJOX. And Don wants to chime in. Hey, Don, what's happening on this Monday?
Hey, hello, everybody. How y'all? Hope y'all had a good weekend.
We did. Hope you did as well.
I did, Pat. But before I talk about Auburn sports and everything, I want to shout out to PG. PG's a little sick and under the weather. So, PG, buddy, we hope you feel better.
Oh, my goodness. Him and Molly both under the weather.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it tomorrow, Pat. I don't want to talk about it over the air, but yeah, good weekend for sports, and it's not just basketball. And Conrad, shout out to your lady Alabama team. They did kick my butt yesterday in women's basketball.
Well, didn't Auburn women have like a 16-point lead, something like that, and then all of a sudden Alabama went on like a 17-0 run? Is that what I read?
That I'm not sure about, Pat. I didn't even know they played yesterday.
What?
I'm an NASCAR
Wait a
guy.
second. No, wait a second. What do you mean
Don.
you're not paying attention to Auburn women's basketball? What's wrong with you?
Well, because they're terrible.
Well, at least you're honest. At least you're honest.
I appreciate the honesty, and Don, I will return the favor. Congratulations to your gymnastics team for the win over Alabama.
Yeah, first time that the Auburn Gymnastics has ever won in Coleman Coliseum in 50 years.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah,
That's a tall task.
Okay, they were having a good discussion on a national show yesterday. I think it was Matt. What's the Kentucky guy? Is it Matt Jones?
Yeah, Matt Jones from KSR.
Okay, he even thinks that Broome should be Player of the Year, and he's a Kentucky guy, and he hates Bruce Pearl. Okay,
yeah.
I'll just leave it at that and everything. But did you know that he owns a wrestling company?
Absolutely. Yep, they're up there in the Ohio Valley. Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Yeah, and I tell you what, if you get Netflix, that's a good little series. It really is, and everything. But anyway, guys, I thought we played okay. Look, hey, as Damian said this morning, this is the time of year where surviving is best, as long as you're winning, okay?
There's no doubt about it. I mean, it is a long season, and the gauntlet that the SEC schedule is, just get out of there with a 1-point win. I mean, just you keep everyone healthy, get a W, and you move on.
Okay, but I'm going to ask you, Pat, a question that Conrad asked me this morning. After Ole Miss at home, the last 3 games of the year for Auburn between Kentucky, A&M, and Alabama. As an Auburn fan, which of those 3 would you worry more about?
Well, I mean, considering the fact you got to go to A&M, correct?
Yes.
So to
that
me,
that was my answer.
Yeah, to me
that's
what it would be, because having everybody else come to Neville, I mean, the record speaks for itself at home. So I would definitely think going to Texas A&M.
No, we go to Rupp Arena Saturday.
Oh, I'm not worried about Rupp Arena. And no.
Well, actually, that's my next question. The 2 guys that did not play, are they out for the year? Or are they?
No, they have been nursing this injury, and they keep anticipating that they're going to be able to go. But
I was about to say Butler's missed a lot of time.
Yeah, so they're optimistic that they're going to be able to get them. But no, I'm just not. I mean, seriously, Texas A&M is to me is a more imposing place to go, especially this year in play. It was a great atmosphere against Tennessee over the weekend, but to me, it would be them going to Texas A&M, not going to Rupp.
Okay, well, speaking of that, Pat, and I talked to Conrad and Damien about this morning. Kentucky is a possible. Well, they're going to have to play day 1 in with the Wednesday games, because 9 through 16 play on Wednesday.
Yes. Depending on how they finish, because if the tournament started right now, Kentucky is playing on Thursday. They would await the winner of South Carolina and Mississippi State.
Yeah, but I think you got Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and 2 other teams right there together. Even Ole Miss is in danger of getting knocked out.
Well, right now, if it ended right now, you've got Kentucky as an 8, Mississippi State 9, Vandy 10, Arkansas 11. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of shuffling before they get to Nashville. But as of right now, Kentucky, Mizzou, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, they would have byes until the second round. And then obviously the top 4 teams, they get an automatic, fast forward to the quarterfinals, and that would be Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee.
Yeah, and on the Alabama case, it really did help them with Missouri and A&M both losing. I believe they got a 2-game lead now, don't they?
Correct. Yes, because Missouri would have been 1 game back.
Okay.
So thank you, Coach Cal.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Pat, I got a lot to go over with you tomorrow at Social Taco. To the listeners, y'all need to come up there, man. We had the best time up there, and me and BB and everybody really would like for y'all to come and everything. We're growing into a little family up there, Pat, and I thank you guys for that. You guys are wonderful people, and we're starting a little family, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, it's a great time on Tuesdays. Thanks, Don Don. We hope to see you and everybody else there at Social Taco tomorrow from 10 until 2 o'clock. So, yeah, I mean, if it started right now, I mean, these are great matchups. You got South Carolina and Mississippi State. Then you've got Georgia and Texas, LSU and Vanderbilt, Oklahoma and Arkansas. Those are your 4 games on Wednesday. We're used to only having 2 games on the opening, but now we've got 4 games. So then Kentucky is sitting there waiting on the winner of South Carolina, Mississippi State. Mizzou is awaiting Georgia, Texas winner. The Rebels are waiting LSU or Vandy. And you saw what Vandy did this weekend against Ole Miss. Then Texas A&M is sitting there waiting for Oklahoma, Arkansas winner.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the one you want to avoid the most right now, at least for me. I mean, I think Arkansas, at least in terms of the eye test, I've been really impressed. They certainly look like a tournament team now. But yeah, I mean, and based on, we'll get to South Carolina and what they were able to do over the weekend. But yeah, now, I mean, you kind of look at whatever matchup you would have in that first round, and it's not a gimme.
No, it's not. And meanwhile, so if you're looking at it, I know this is an audio medium, not visual, unless you're watching on YouTube, and I'll have a graphic to show you right now. But if you're Auburn, if the season were to end today, the 3 potential opponents that you would have when Auburn takes the floor for the first time in the quarterfinals would be South Carolina, Mississippi State, or Kentucky. Those are the 3 teams. Meanwhile, Alabama would either be Oklahoma, Arkansas, or Texas A&M. Those are the 3 teams that would be segmented in their portion of the bracket, and that's who Alabama would await. So it's going to be fun in Nashville. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere, always is, there up in Nashville. Molly was there last year covering it for us on 3-man front in Jocks. But, man, having all 16 teams going from Wednesday on, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, we've talked about this, but it kind of is like a mini NCAA tournament. I mean, when heck, you're going to have, 12, 13, 14 of your 16 teams are going to be in the big dance, and you kind of get, it's like an appetizer for that. And obviously, I think whoever wins it looks like Auburn is going to win the regular season title, but whoever wins the SEC tournament title, that is going to be a banner that you are going to hang with pride, because that is, for my money, this is the most competitive year we've ever had in the SEC. So winning that tournament is going to mean a lot. Obviously, you still want to go on and achieve your ultimate goal in March Madness, but whoever wins the tournament is, they're going to have to go through a gauntlet.
More of your calls, your texts as well. We'll get to the text line next, right here on Jocks 94.5. It is Reaction Monday here on Jocks 94.5. We'll get to your text messages momentarily on the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. The top 25 baseball poll is out by D1 Baseball. Number 1 in America is a Southeastern Conference school, Texas A&M. The number 2 team in America is a Southeastern Conference school. That would be LSU. The third ranked team in the D1 Baseball Top 25 as the Southeastern Conference team. That would be Tennessee. You see the theme developing here. Mm-hmm. At number 4, you've got an SEC team, Arkansas. Man, could not do the sweep. We could not have all 5 of the top 5. It is. The conference is going to heck in a handbasket really quick. At number 6 is the Georgia Bulldogs. 8 is Florida. So not too shabby when you have 6 of the top 8.
Pretty good.
Reside from the Southeastern Conference. Coming in at number 14 is Vandy, 15 Texas, 16 Oklahoma, 18 Mississippi State, 24 Ole Miss. Now, Bama's undefeated. They had that big, just remarkable comeback yesterday against The Ohio State University. Alabama's undefeated, but they did not crack the D1 Baseball Top 25.
I was about to say, Alabama off to a hot start, like you mentioned, coming back from down 10-0 to hit a walk-off home run. Auburn 7-1 on the season. They got a sweep over the weekend. So 2 more SEC teams that might be knocking on the door there of the top 25. Well, quickly, I want to tell you about my friends over at Easy Hemp Company. Easy is a refreshing new beverage that's reliably microdosed with 3 milligrams of D9 THC and 3 milligrams of CBD per serving. It's also non-alcoholic and free of any added sugars, so there's no day after hangover effects for you to worry about. Plus, it's a delicious beverage and a great way to stay hydrated as we approach the warmer months. Easy Hemp Co. is based right here in Birmingham, Alabama, and if you're looking for that social buzz with no regrets, then look no further. Easy Hemp Co. is available at Piggly Wiggly's across the state, or go visit them online at easyhempco.com to find a location nearby or have it shipped directly to your doorstep.
And speaking of baseball, let's hear the way it sounded yesterday as Alabama fell behind big time early, but they mounted the comeback. This is the way it sounded, audio courtesy of Division I baseball.
Another 2-2. Hodo launches it up into the air. It is out of here by a long shot, a walk-off 3-run home run, and Alabama sweeps the weekend and wins the Jacksonville College Baseball Classic.
They ran the game-winning play. Will Hodo said, "Blitz, Bama, blitz." He ambushes a heater.
Get a fun little nod to the Blitz, Bama, blitz there. I thought that was a great call, but awesome. It seemed like an awesome environment. Alabama goes down 10-0 in the 4th inning. You get a couple of 3-run home runs from Justin LeBron over the course of the game, and then you get set up. It's 10-9 going into the bottom of the 9th, and you're able to hit the walk-off. So a very, very cool moment for Alabama baseball yesterday.
So good starts for Alabama and Auburn baseball, and a shout-out to UAB baseball. I think they've now won 6 in a row. It's the first time in about 3 or 4 years that they have won that many games in a row. So a nice start by Casey Dunn and the UAB Blazer baseball team. Let's go to the text line at 205-834-9450. And as always, it's brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. Go to courtesybirmingham.com.
Absolutely. Well, we start off with a nice text from our buddy Steve. Steve texted in. He just says, "Molly, hope you get to feeling better soon."
Thank you.
What was that, Molly?
Thank you.
All right, we have Will who texted in. He says Texas got whooped by a winless South Carolina team. I fail to see how they could get in the tournament. They're terrible. I don't think Georgia should be in either. Well, Will, at least Georgia right now is not in, but Texas, still one of the bubble teams there.
They sure are. They're in. Yeah, speaking of that Texas game, South Carolina ends a 13-game losing streak. Texas, 5 of 9, loses to the worst team in the Southeastern Conference. That hurts bad.
Yeah, and hey, look, you're happy for South Carolina. At least they weren't, in the Missouri boat of last year where you go winless the entire time. And who knows, maybe this spurs them over the last couple of weeks to pick up another win or two. But certainly happy for Lamont Paris and those guys. But yeah, Texas is, they started off kind of wishy-washy. Then they started to kind of find their footing in SEC play, and now they're stumbling again. And outside of Trey Johnson, they just, they don't really have a lot of help for him. So we will see if they're able to keep their foot in the door of the NCAA tournament here over the last couple of weeks. Let's see. Somebody texting in. I think this is our Parlay. What is it? Parlay Pete, Parlay Paul from down in Florida. He
Yes.
texted in Parlay Pete. He says, Pat, Stony Brook or Hampton, 11 a.m. start your time. Asking you if you have a lean in those matchups.
I was not aware of that.
You got 7.5 minutes.
To be completely honest, let me take a little gander here real quick. Oh, he is right. I apologize that I had not looked at the docket. Was unaware that they were playing at 11 a.m. this morning. But yeah, first half spread is Hampton 5.5. Molly,
I kind of like the Seawolves.
you like the Seawolves?
There we go.
Okay, all right.
There we go. Well, thank you for bringing that. You just made Pat's day. He has something to
Yeah, I've
look
got
forward to.
something
For the
to look
rest of the
forward
show.
to for the next 7 minutes.
I just looked.
What?
They're 6.
What are you saying? I see your mouth moving.
I'll
Are
just
you?
keep my mouth shut.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say they're like 6-22 on the season.
Are they
Stony
really?
Brook- Yeah, they're not good.
Is this?
Could
Are
be
you
a good
giving us a lock?
opportunity there.
This is not my Detroit. No, that came to me in a dream. This is
And you've just had fever dreams over the weekend.
pretty much. Yeah.
We have our buddy Drake texting in. He says, guys, my Gator softball girls made history yesterday, putting up 24 runs. And he also says, Pat, the young lady that from Trussville who transferred from Alabama has been incredible for Florida. I don't know. I'm not familiar with who that is, but good to see that Florida softball.
Well, I will
Continuing
tell
to
you
be
this,
strong.
that obviously Hewitt Trussville's softball program is the best in the state, and they have racked up state title after state title, and many of the young Huskies have gone on to play Division I softball, and they are definitely making their mark.
Let's see. We have Tico who chimes in. They say, to me, what makes A&M the toughest game left on Auburn's schedule is the having to travel to Lexington and then coming off of that 3 days later, you're in College Station playing the Aggies. Lots of travel in a short period of time for Auburn.
Yeah, it's true. And speaking of Texas A&M, they lost by 8 at home to Tennessee. The big thing about Tennessee is about their offense. Can they find enough of it? Because their defense is elite. But when Chaz Lanier gets 30 points.
So he had 8 3-pointers, I think.
Yeah.
That'll work.
And then you got 16 points from Ziegler. But A&M, they were kind of like it's the Spider-Man meme when you got, Texas A&M and Tennessee when it comes to offense, right? A&M were 5 of 30 behind the 3-point arc.
A lot of it for them comes down to Wade Taylor.
And Wade Taylor was 0 for 9.
And that's where they get you.
Yeah, that was bad. So Tennessee and A&M both now are 9-5 in conference play.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a great point. Wade Taylor plays well. A&M's probably going to win. Lanier plays well. Tennessee's going to win. It's just those guys need to be more consistent.
Yep.
For their teams respectively. All right, Robert, he chimes in. He says, let's see, the committee, the last 4 NCAA tournaments have not put as much stock into conference tournament results.
That's true.
Unless it's somewhere and coming out of nowhere, like what's happened each year in the ACC tournament. Yeah.
That is true.
And I mean,
Very
we've
much
heard
so.
essentially the last day of these tournaments, the bracket's already made up.
Well, it's interesting because we had Jerry Palm on the show on Friday, and Jerry says absolutely. They take a look at every single tournament game up until the last moment. Meanwhile, we have Rocco Miller on this show, our resident bracketologist, and he's told us year after year that the hay's pretty much in the barn before you get to Friday. So depends on who you ask.
We have somebody chiming in and they say more kind words for Molly. They say Molly is a trooper. While some take the day off to go to their winter home, others show up and fight through the sickness. Kudos to Molly.
That is so true. Yeah.
Poor
Yeah,
Landrum
I'm not
catching
like
strays
Landrum.
while he's on the ski slopes.
Yeah.
And then we have one more coming in right now. It says, so maybe okay. In reference to if you saw the Alabama baseball post that went viral after the win yesterday that they got in trouble for, somebody texting in and said maybe the Alabama baseball players were giving that gesture to the people that do the poll. So if you haven't seen the picture, they were celebrating the win. I look at it as maybe just don't post it. Keep it for yourself, whatever, have the great moment, but not everything needs to go out on social media. I don't think it's a big deal, but.
Well, you could be like Arizona and having to apologize what they said about the Mormon faith over the weekend.
That was much worse. Yep.
Very much so. Hour number 1 in the books. We've got 3 more to go. Hope you'll join us. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks. Welcome back. It's hour number 2 on this Monday. Hope everybody's starting your work week on a high note. Thanks for tuning us in here on Jocks 94.5. Great radio stations. Huntsville, the Ump, down in Montgomery, Alabama on Jocks 740. We appreciate you all listening. We're wide open today. We want to hear from you. 1-800-239-WJOX, the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450. Conrad, we had a very interesting poll question today in regards to the rivalry going on between Alabama and Auburn in football. And the reason we did that is because if you have not had an opportunity, we strongly recommend that you go to auburnundercover.com, a great partner with us here on 3-Man Front. And they've started a podcast in which Terry Bowden, former Auburn coach, Jay Jacobs is also doing a podcast for Auburn Undercover. But the Bowden brothers, Tommy Bowden and Terry Bowden, they were on this podcast and they had something very interesting to say, Conrad.
Yeah, so our poll question for the day is, in an Auburn Undercover podcast, Terry and Tommy Bowden described the Iron Bowl as, quote, the most cold-blooded rivalry in college football. So our question to you is today's version of the game as nasty as it once was? You have 3 options. Yes, hate is through the roof. No, you don't think the rivalry is as nasty as it used to be. Or same as always, the rivalry hasn't changed at all. And right now, winning with 51% of the vote is no, the rivalry is not as heated as it once was. In second place is same as always, there's been no change. And then with 18% of the vote in last place, you have yes, hate is still through the roof. So the majority of our listeners, Pat, telling us they don't think that the rivalry has quite the venom that it used to have.
Is it because Alabama has won the majority of the Iron Bowls of recent memory? Do you think that is why that there is not the kind of hate that we used to see?
Yeah, I think that may be the case, and I think it's even different though, where I don't know. It just feels different because if you remember, going back to when I was growing up, and you had Fear the Thumb, and even when Auburn was dominating that rivalry, it felt like that animosity was still there, where Alabama was so desperate to break that streak, and that led to so much of the animosity. And well, I think you still get that on the Auburn side of things. Obviously, I'm sure they would have loved to have won, the Iron Bowl, especially, 2 years ago on something like 4th and 31 and how big that would have been. But it just feels like with, let's be honest, the Auburn football program has left something to be desired for a handful of years now. And I just think that there's not it doesn't feel like something's on the line as opposed to maybe earlier in the Nick Saban era, or even when Tuberville was there, where, for a while, it felt like every year whoever won that game was going to be at the forefront of the national championship picture. And we just haven't had that in a while.
Or is it because Nick Saban's no longer there and that Auburn people always hated Nick Saban?
Maybe that's a little bit part of it. And I think it's, who knows how long Hugh Freeze is going to be in Auburn? Who knows how long Kalen DeBoer is going to be there? But it feels like when you have two coaches that are going at it for years and years and years and years, it adds something more to the rivalry as opposed to like this year. It was, kind of fresh, right? We had two new coaches, or I guess, Hugh Freeze had been there, but you had a new coach on the Alabama side. It's the first time in 17 years that have been the case. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but I still think it's I think there's a pretty good bit of animosity between both Alabama and Auburn fans still. And I think maybe now, it's, we lost in football, but we've won in basketball. And so maybe the basketball element has made the football side of it not as intense because you feel like, oh, well, at least we have basketball.
You can go vote at the 3-Man Front Twitter page at the number 3-Man Front. Love to get your take on the Iron Bowl football rivalry. I know we've talked a lot about the Iron Bowl of basketball, but we're talking about the football game that Terry and Tommy Bowden was talking about. Auburn gets a win over the weekend against Georgia. They continue their winning ways, sit atop the SEC 82-70. You got Alabama, big win after losing 2 of their previous games. They end the losing streak by taking care of Kentucky 96-83. UAB wins yesterday, easy win against the Temple Owls, and it was Samford winning on Saturday against Western Carolina 93-72. There has been a disturbing story that is coming out of Fresno, California. And if you have not been able to follow this story, it is one that unfortunately, because of the fact that legal gambling is now legal in most places for the exception of the state of Alabama, you're going to have situations like this. And so all of a sudden, the Fresno State basketball team is all involved in this controversy. If you have not heard or read what is going on, this is from KFSN Television in Fresno, California. They're the ones that broke this story Saturday night.
California's #1 news. This is ABC 30 Action News after the game.
Well, on Valentine's Day, we were tipped off about a source about the investigation into gambling allegations. At the time, just one former player, Michael Robinson, was mentioned. That's now expanded to 3 with Zayon Collins and Jalen Weaver suspended just 30 minutes before today's game. Action News has learned that 2 of those 3 players, Zayon and Michael Robinson, were gambling on Bulldog basketball prop bets, betting the unders on both points and rebounds. That leaves open the potential that they may have been tainting the results of a game for their financial benefit. The other player, Jalen Weaver, was allegedly betting on professional sports. The source tells us head coach Vance Wahlberg was the one who discovered the gambling was taking place. He went to Fresno State's administration, which got the NCAA involved.
As Vince mentioned there, just on the heels of that historic loss, also Collins was involved in some controversy when he first joined the team.
Yeah, when he first came here, we talked to him in an exclusive interview in September. He was accused of felony reckless driving, pled guilty in 2023, spent nearly 60 days in jail, and now here he was coming for a second chance, and it looks like that redemption story is now just mired in more controversy.
It is just an incredibly just a bad story all the way around. And the interesting part to me is their head coach, Vance Wahlberg, once it became apparent to him that this was going on, he went immediately to the administration, and then the administration turned around and contacted the NCAA.
Yeah, I mean that's what should have been done. This is just, and maybe I'm forgetting one, but it feels like in a lot of these stories that we've heard, they mentioned the one player that was gambling on professional sports, and we've seen a lot of that, of guys that get caught gambling not on a game that they are directly involved with, but just gambling in general. But when you hear that two of the players are actively gambling against their team and, essentially, going out there and not playing up to their capabilities so that they can win some money on a prop bet, that's unacceptable. And yeah, I mean, they should be, the fact that only one of them was kicked off the team and I guess two of the other ones are still there, but they're suspended. Get rid of all of them. You can't have this kind of stuff in sports. And to know that, just to know that you have players that are actively betting against your team and against your ability to have success on the court, I don't know what you do at that point if you're the coach. Like that's horrible.
You just gotta kick everyone off and
just start over.
Pretty much. But Robinson and Weaver allegedly placed bets with the Bulldog men's basketball team that they would underperform on points and rebounds. I mean, this is the classic sign of them basically throwing the game.
Yeah, well, Fresno State on the season
They've lost 10 in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
They are on a 10-game losing streak. They are 5-23. They are 1-16 in conference play. So
Weaver averaged 12.5 points per game. Collins 12 points per game. There were two of Fresno's top three scorers on a team that's only won 5 games.
And obviously the question is, what game was it, so we can go back and look at the box score and how that may have impacted things. But, I mean, when you're
you could pick a lot of them.
I mean, why would you not just bet on your team to lose on the money line at this point? Like, with how bad you are, right? Maybe that's your best chance.
See, what I don't understand, and we've seen a lot of stupid people do a lot of stupid things, especially criminals. But I would love to know, are these people getting relatives to like make the wagers, or are they being as bold and stupid to like have an account and do it themselves?
I mean, at least come up with some sort of a username or something that can't, and I know they have your personal information.
Or you have a friend of a friend.
Yes.
Or whatever the case may be.
How many athletes, both college and professional, do you think have a system like that? Probably a lot.
Yeah. And the one player, and you heard the report out of Fresno, Collins, who averages 12 points per game, he also leads the team in assists at 4.7. He came to the Bulldogs looking for his second chance this offseason after he pled guilty in the 2023 to felony reckless driving that resulted in the death of a 52-year-old.
Oh. Thought it was like a reckless driving ticket for
no,
just got pulled over.
No, that would be resulting in the death of a 52-year-old. And so
I mean, you just hope this young man can turn his life around, but
so he comes to Fresno looking for a second chance after the reckless driving felony, in which an individual died.
And I just look at this and, I mean, I'm sorry, like, how much money are you making on a Fresno State prop bet? Like, is this worth your
Not to mention the fact
academics?
That you are talking about Fresno State in the U.S. Integrity Service. If you see large, just like the Alabama baseball scandal that took place a couple of years ago, just all of a sudden a random Alabama LSU baseball game, and you're seeing a very large handle. I mean, there's red flags all over the place. And when you've got a basketball team that's won 5 games all season long, and you have that type of action on something, I would think that would definitely, cause a red flag.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that it's, a Keyshawn Booty situation where he was betting and profiting hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you at least went, okay, that was not a good decision, but you're obviously very good at what you do and you were making money, so I can understand why you kept doing it. But you can't tell me they're betting more than, $100 on a something like that, maybe a little more. But is that worth your integrity as a student athlete? Is that worth your academic scholarship, your ability to go get an education? And just stupid.
Well, the NCAA, they have been very steadfast. They are trying to get these prop bets thrown out.
Mm-hmm. And they're and I think in these types of situations, they're going to try to make an example out of these types of kids.
There's no doubt. And they should.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that was making the rounds this weekend about Fresno State. So, and that's a proud athletic department.
Well, and I mean, I guess look at it from this angle too. All right, let's say you go out there and just try your best. You put your best foot forward. You go out there, you play good basketball. Are you not going to make more money in NIL next year, whether it's Fresno State or another? Like there's opportunities for you to create value for yourself and make, I would assume, more money via NIL by
As
going out
opposed
there
to
and
you throwing
performing
a
high.
basketball game.
Exactly, and making a little money off of a prop bet. But something tells me these guys aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, and they're probably not thinking long term, obviously.
No, they most definitely aren't. Text line is open, 205-834-9450. When we come back on Three Man Front, we will get to your text. We'll keep the phone lines open for you, 1-800-239-WJOX. Eleven 16, Jocks 94.5 on this Reaction Monday. We'll be at Social Taco tomorrow. Please join us. Conrad and I will be there. Landrum is out this week. He'll be back on the show on Monday.
Well, we've still got some cold weather hanging around, and schedule your system checkup now from a Trane comfort specialist because Trane's been recognized for 10 consecutive years as America's most trusted HVAC brand, and there are exclusive home comfort partners right here at Jocks 94.5. Just go visit them online at Trane.com to find a comfort specialist near you.
So we were just talking about that situation going on in Fresno, California with the Fresno basketball team. Over the weekend, I read this where, according to the American Gaming Association, legal sports wagering in 2024 reached $13.71 billion in revenue. That's an increase of 25% from the previous year.
So do you think it's as simple as just it becoming, I guess, more widespread? It's legal in more places? Or because I feel like, sports gambling's always been a thing, but it's just exploded in popularity the last couple of years.
Well, because now you can legitimately and legally track it in regards to how much money in the handle is. The sports betting handle was up 23.6% to $147.9 billion in 2023. Sports betting is now legal in 38 states and the District of Columbia. It is not legal in the state of Alabama.
It is not. Maybe one day.
But 38 states in the District of Columbia allow legal sports gambling.
It's just a wild number. That's a lot of money. I'm glad to know we don't need any of that money to be taxed here and couldn't benefit from that in any way here
but
in
that's
Alabama.
25% increase.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. So situations like the Fresno, I mean, you have to figure out a way from the integrity of the game to, obviously, you need to throw the book at these individuals and ban them from ever playing basketball again. But the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, this is not going to change. When you have a $13.71 billion revenue for a business, it's not going away.
Well, and I mean, obviously, it's also, the irony of you could turn on one of the major sports networks and while they might be talking about a story like the Fresno State one, you're going to have the ticker at the bottom with all the point spreads for that night's game. So it's just, it is what it is now. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's here to stay.
It doesn't matter who we've talked to on this radio show from around the country, whether it was Pete Mondo from Kansas City, whether it's our friends in Oklahoma. They always say, you know what? You guys get ready because dealing with the University of Texas and dealing with those people, it's going to be a headache. Just wait. The honeymoon's going to end pretty quick, and then it's going to be a headache. Well, we saw obviously Texas football get to the Southeastern Conference Championship game in year one, but this is an amazing stat. So Texas, this weekend, they swept the men's and women's SEC diving and diving team titles. So in their inaugural season in the Southeastern Conference, because typically Florida, and Auburn's got a really good swimming program as well, but Florida typically dominates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Texas comes in, they win the men's, women's, SEC diving and the diving team titles. This is the stat that's going to blow your mind. It's the 46th consecutive year that the men have won a conference championship. That's right. 46 consecutive years that the University of Texas men have won the swimming championship. It dates back to 1980 in the Southwest Conference. 46 consecutive years.
Well, whenever that gets snapped, I don't know if that one's going to be that record's ever going to be broken. That's remarkable.
Okay, so that's the men. The women have won 13 consecutive conference championships dating back to the 2013 Big 12 title.
That's wild. That's super impressive. That's my favorite Texas stat I've ever heard.
46 consecutive years that the men have won a conference championship dating back to 1980.
Well, that's why they, when they were talking about, how dominant they were in the Big 12, they weren't talking about football, Pat. They were talking about the other sports. And that's very impressive.
So say we should invite them in, Molly. We invite them in now. They're coming over for dinner and they're rearranging the furniture in front of your television.
Okay, but imagine being on the team that loses that streak. That must suck.
Could you feel the pressure?
If that day does come. Yeah.
The pressure?
Yeah, every year now.
It's just
don't be that team. Don't be that team.
I mean, they're basically going to feel like Kalen DeBoer. He did this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least that was only 17 years, not 46 years.
That's
whatever.
true. Is that not amazing?
That's
46 consecutive year that the men have won a conference championship.
See, now I'm just wondering what are the most consecutive conference championships in any sport? Because I find it hard to believe that there's one that's more than 46 years, but maybe there's a rifle team somewhere or something like that. But that's going back. I mean, seriously, yeah, the 80s, like you said, late 70s, early 80s. That's incredible.
That is pretty amazing. So, yeah, they come into the SEC, and then lo and behold, look what happens. All right, so we got the NFL Scouting Combine going on in Indianapolis, Indiana this week. I understand that Shedeur Sanders, he will not throw. Also, Cam Ward, I've been told, is not going to throw. Now, I think both individuals will be there having meetings with teams. Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, they are scheduled to throw. They will be a part of it.
Well, Milroe needs to throw. And I mean, it's not totally uncommon with, what we're seeing with Shedeur, for example, because I know he said essentially he wants to take that opportunity to interview with teams, let him see his personality, let him, work on the whiteboard a little bit, and then he's going to throw at his pro day. And you see a lot of guys do this, right? They want to give their wide receivers the best chance to have a good look with the scouts, so they go and wait to throw until their pro game. And, both of these guys are still going to be first-round picks regardless, but it'll be interesting because I think, the combine this is where, especially for a guy like Jalen Milroe, I think this is going to be his best chance to work his way up a draft board, because I think we all know the measurables, his physical gifts are going to be off the charts. He's very personable. I think he will interview very well.
So you think that's a good move for him to throw?
Absolutely.
At the combine?
Absolutely. Because I think after the Senior Bowl, you started to, going into the Senior Bowl, I mean, remember, we had a few mock drafts we saw that had him going as a first-round pick to the Browns, the Steelers. I think the Giants were thrown in there at one point. And then after the Senior Bowl, where he did not perform particularly well, that hype kind of started to die down. So I think the combine was something he probably always circled as, this is my chance to really, wow some people.
So Riley Leonard, he is scheduled to throw. So the majority of the names, the bigger names, the only two that as of right now are planning not to actually physically throw, but they're going to throw at pro days, would be Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
And maybe Jackson Dart, finds himself up in that first round conversation, because I've seen he's, a lot of people have had him as maybe their dark horse or the guy that they expect to move up draft boards the most between the end of the season and the draft in April. So I know there's a lot of people that really, really like him, and getting an opportunity to maybe be him and Milroe, the marquee quarterbacks there at the combine that are throwing, hopefully that helps them out when it comes time in April.
So speaking of the NFL Scouting Combine, it will take place again this year in Indianapolis. It's done so since 1987. If you've ever been to Indianapolis, they have a really cool system, because you have Lucas Oil Stadium, and then you have the Indiana Convention Center, which runs underneath the roads, and it's an underground system. So like you could be at a hotel, then you can go and you don't have to get out in the elements. It's all concise right there together. Well, apparently last year, at last year's combine, the NFL hosted officials from Las Vegas, Minneapolis, Nashville, and Phoenix who are looking to take the combine away from Indianapolis. The current contract runs another year with the city of Indianapolis and the Indiana Convention Center. So the cities of Las Vegas, Minneapolis, Nashville, and Phoenix are all wanting to grab the combine.
I guess the combine for me is just one of those things. Why do we need to move it? Because I think everything runs so well at Lucas Oil. And I can understand from a draft perspective. I feel like there's more fanfare there. There's more excitement. You can have a lot of people come out and make it look great on television. But for the combine, I know there's a lot of people that are just diehard combine fans, but I've never felt like, we need to move this around every year. It feels like it would be smarter to have it in the same spot in Lucas Oil, where everybody knows how the thing operates. And I don't know. I guess I've just looked at the combine as something that doesn't need to be moved around, whereas I get it more for the draft.
What about let's talk about the draft. Do you believe that the draft, that's a good move for them to move it around in regards to different NFL cities?
Yeah. Again, with the draft, even though I would be fine if they just had it in the same spot every year, but I think, maybe there's a fun way you could move around with the draft. I know it'd be difficult with teams trading out, and not every city is probably going to have the logistics to hold the draft. But what if every year, whoever has the number 1 overall pick, that's where the draft is? And then you get all of your fan base to go out there, and it's this huge moment. Again, it's probably not practical, but I think an idea like that would be cool. But yeah, I like moving it around. I think when it was in Nashville, I thought they did a great job with that.
I think Nashville is what really put it on the map, in my opinion. I mean, Broadway.
They did a great job.
And the way that whole thing just exploded.
And it's in April, so even if, let's say it's in Buffalo, okay, it might not be 80 degrees in Buffalo, but it's not, you're not having it in January when there's going to be 2 feet of snow on the ground.
True. The thinking of Nashville is maybe get it in time when the stadium is finished, the new stadium.
For the combine?
Mm-hmm.
I could see, yeah.
That's the general feeling.
And I can see that.
Now, places like Phoenix and Minneapolis, they're holding out for another Super Bowl. Minneapolis has hosted one Super Bowl. That was in 2018. And it was I think it was the first year of the stadium being in existence, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
So I think Minneapolis would love to try to get another Super Bowl. But the more and more you read about Super Bowl sites, it seems like they're getting on a 4-city kind of a rotation, almost like the college football playoff is, where you're going to have Miami, New Orleans, SoFi, maybe Vegas, throw in an Atlanta every once in a while.
Yeah, and see, I don't have a problem with that. And I guess, that's kind of the same thing you could talk about with the combine, is just having a sort of a rotation. I think it's just good to have a set, all right, we can plan this out in advance. And I know that, you know where the Super Bowl is going to be a year or two in advance, things like that, but just having a set rotation just for continuity, I think that's fine. But hey, I mean, if they want to move that around and there's enough fanfare to justify that, then go for it. I think, with the Super Bowl, as we learned when Molly shared all of the, I guess, credentials or guidelines you have to have in order to host a Super Bowl, it makes sense that you would only have a handful of teams that would rotate between, because as we found out here in Alabama or in Birmingham, we might have a lot of amenities, but we don't have the
35,000 parking spaces.
Yeah, however many ridiculous number of parking spots you needed. And I think there's probably a lot of places that can't accommodate that.
When we come back on Three-Man Front, the men's basketball coaches poll has just come out. A little bit of shaking and moving. Interesting. Again, it has no bearing whatsoever on the NCAA tournament, but it is an interesting way to kind of look at how coaches are viewing certain teams. We'll talk about that next on Three-Man Front. 11:32, Jackson 94.5 on this Reaction Monday. 205-834-9450. That is the Courtesy GMC text line. Visit Courtesy GMC online at courtesybirmingham.com. So the coaches poll has just come out for the men's basketball. Auburn is not the unanimous number one this week. The Duke Blue Devils got 2 first-place votes. So Auburn is number one, followed by Duke. The Florida Gators are 3. Houston 4. Tennessee is now 5.
Oh, no.
Alabama is at 6. They fell 2 spots.
How the mighty have fallen.
In the coaches' basketball poll.
They were number 1 2 weeks ago.
St. John's is at number 7. Michigan State 8. Iowa State 9. And Texas Tech comes in at number 10. So that is your top 10 in the men's basketball coaches poll.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, so they will show you essentially the highest that a team is ranked and
Correct.
then the lowest that a team is ranked. And according to this, somebody out there has Auburn as the 11th team in the country.
See, and that's the coaches poll.
I know.
So, I mean,
how is that possible?
I have no idea.
Somebody has Florida as the 21st best team. 3 people, or St. John's, Michigan State, and Texas Tech were all in the top 10. People didn't even rank those 3 teams. They're not ranked on somebody's poll. Is that because somebody just didn't fill out a poll, and so that's where they have them there? But I mean, the fact that somebody has Auburn as the 11th best team in the country, I think that's a coach.
Yeah, that's not. I would say take their vote away.
Yeah, that's but I mean, you look at Houston's 18 somewhere, Alabama's 12 somewhere. Anyways, that's just kind of a bizarre note there from the AP coaches poll. But yeah, Auburn stays number 1. They have 28 of the 31st place votes. And at 205-834-9450, you can continue to chime in on the Jocks text line, as many of you have done throughout the show. It is a Reaction Monday here, so I want to get your thoughts on what you saw over the weekend from Alabama, Auburn, UAB, Samford, other things going on outside of college hoops. And we start with somebody who texted in, and they say, I greatly enjoy the SEC basketball regular season. There's a ton of great games. An 18-game season determines who the best teams are. I care 0 about the postseason tournament. It proves nothing and doesn't even have to do anything with who gets in the NCAA tournament. I guess he's talking about the SEC tournament.
Well, we've kind of talked about it before and kicked around the idea is, I mean, it's an 18-game schedule. Why not just award the automatic bid to the team that finishes in first place during the regular season?
Not a bad idea. And you have the question. I've seen some Auburn fans on social media bring up the idea of, all right, you win the regular season title. You go to Nashville in the SEC tournament. All right, do you put your best foot forward and try to win that tournament, which I think is ultimately what they would try to do? Or do you maybe rest some guys and say, hey, we won the regular season title. We're the number 1 overall seed. It's more important to us to be rested and healthy trying to win a national championship than giving our best effort in Nashville. So I know that's been a topic that some people have debated as well. Let's see. We have somebody texting in from the state of Texas. They say, somebody get Molly a spicy margarita with tahini-rimmed glass. She'll be fine by noon.
That sounds good.
To help you clear up your sinuses.
Probably would.
Quit faking it. Your voice is fine.
Let's see. We have Mike in Double Springs. He texts in, says, another baseball shout out in state. My Troy Trojans are 6-1. Only loss on the season so far is to Auburn. Troy plays Mississippi State tomorrow. Go Trojans. Yes, another great start to the season there for college baseball with Troy down south. Let's see. We have some people chiming in about our poll question, which if you missed it, we are essentially asking, do you think that the Iron Bowl rivalry is as venomous? Is there as much animosity in that rivalry as there used to be? A lot of you chiming in and saying no, 51% of you saying no, you don't think the rivalry is quite as intense as it used to be. And someone chimes in, they say, I think the Iron Bowl has changed a bit because on the player side of things with the transfer portal and all of that, but I think it's the same as always with the fan bases. I guess in the sense of you have a lot of players that, you know, you haven't been a part of a program for 4 or 5 years. And so the Iron Bowl means something because you've been going up against the same guys for 4 years and you want to win that. Maybe that's part of it, but you know, the transfer portal and that stuff is still kind of new, but I would think it meant a lot to Malachi Moore, Pat, getting 5 straight wins against Auburn and beating them every year of his college career. I think for some guys like that stick around, it certainly means a lot.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Brandon chimes in about the poll question. He says, all the people chiming in saying it's not as heated as it used to be are Alabama fans. It's a Birmingham poll like every poll that y'all do. Well, I mean, guess we just have more Alabama fans that listen to the show or interact than Auburn fans. That's typically the way that it goes. We've talked about that before. Typically, that's the more vocal fan base. All right, Mike in Trustville chimes in. He says, it was good to see you again last night, Pat. You did a wonderful job as always at the banquet. Trustville's fortunate to have you associated with the football program.
Mike, you're very kind. Very humbled by those comments. Thank you. I had a wonderful time every year honoring the football and the cheerleaders and everyone's involved there in Hewitt-Trussville. Hate that Molly was under the weather. She could not make it. She's our sideline reporter for Husky Fast Network. So, but thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Let's see. We have a kind of a long one coming in about the Iron Bowl. Don't know who this is texting in, but they say, concerning the Iron Bowl, from an Auburn fan perspective, it's lost its luster for me because Auburn just hasn't been very competitive in the game. But I will also say in general that rivalry games have lost their luster because of the transfer portal. It seems like the players aren't committed to the programs, and the players' reason for choosing their program has more to do with money. This is a systemic problem that is negatively impacting college football as a whole. Sadly, the sport just isn't what it used to be.
And not to mention the fact that as we are developing a new psychological feel with college football, meaning you're adopting the NFL psychosis, which is you can lose multiple games per year. And when you lose back in the old days, if Alabama or Auburn lost the Iron Bowl, that typically meant you would not win the SEC West, which would then mean that you would not go to Atlanta, potentially then go on to play for a BCS or for a college football playoff spot, right?
Yeah.
Well, now it's changed dramatically. You can lose multiple games in a year and still be in a position to go to the CFP. So maybe that's why most college football rivalries have lost a little bit of its luster.
I will say this as well, and this is more for the Alabama side of things moving forward, as we saw this year, right? Auburn dominated recruiting in the state of Alabama. So you imagine they probably have a lot of guys coming in that grew up. They at least have an understanding of this rivalry, regardless of what side they grew up, rooting for. And then you have Alabama, for example, where we saw they got a lot of very talented players from outside of the state of Alabama. And so moving forward, is that a situation where if you keep recruiting at a high level outside of the state and that's not as big of an emphasis for you, does that kind of kill a little bit of the rivalry because you don't have as many players on your roster that grew up hating Auburn or hating Alabama? It's guys that are coming in from different rivalries that they grew up rooting for, rooting against. So I think there's a lot of things, but yes, I think everything that the people are chiming in on so far is valid. Somebody texting in and says that UCLA bet was live action for Pat. Did you play UCLA?
I did not.
I guess coming off of another Mick Cronin, a little bit of a pity party there he was throwing for himself. Cody chimes in, and Molly, you brought this up earlier. He says, is Molly or Bruce Pearl talking?
I did say I sounded a lot like Bruce Pearl today.
Yeah, he sounded a little hoarse after the Georgia game, but that is Molly, and we appreciate her being here, even though she's a little under the weather. Let's see. Alan texted in about the coaches poll and says, is it possible that Bruce Pearl is the one ranking Auburn lower in order to motivate them?
You know what? That's a good point. I did not think of that.
I'm surprised. If I was a coach, I might do that. That's actually not a bad.
Just keep downplaying your team's ability.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not that. All right. Somebody text in. They say, I'm just seeing the last text that somebody sent on Friday about me not making it down to the beach because Paige wanted to go to the Sanford game and I had to come back and rescue my wife. That was good. But Alan texted in today and he says, how's it illegal to bet in Alabama? But if you live in Alabama, you can bet on Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is considered a fantasy game.
Correct.
Fantasy games are legal in the state of Alabama.
That's why it is more or less when you're making your picks as opposed to some of the other terminology that you might be familiar with. Let's see. Jerry from Hayden, he texts in and all he says is, I hate Auburn 24/7, 365.
There you go.
There we go. There's the animosity that we needed back in the rivalry. Thank you for chiming in there.
I mean,
Jared.
going back to college football rivalries, you had Ohio State get embarrassed by Michigan again, and then they make the college football playoff and win the national championship.
Absolutely.
So then, if you're the Ohio State fan base for about a week or two, like you feel really bad because you just lost to Michigan, but then at the end of the year, you're wearing a ring. So
I mean, go back to 2017 Alabama. You lose the Iron Bowl, and then you find a way to not only win the national championship, but then you get to beat Georgia at that to win the national championship. So that's just the way that it works sometimes. But if you want to chime in on the courtesy GMC text line, you can do so at 205-834-9450. Appreciate you all chiming in throughout the day.
I've been telling you for a good long while about APS, and APS is the alabamaprofessional.com. That is the website. And if you're a homeowner like myself, you want to make sure that your home's been properly waterproofed. And I'm talking about the APS crawl space encapsulation system. It can stop water, keep the pests out while lowering your energy costs. The engineers at APS, they can design a solution today to help you out. Get a free estimate. Let them come out to your house. If you've got some mold, some mildew, some water damage issues going on in your house, they can take care of you at 205-951-9717, established in 1977 to help the homeowner solve the most challenging issues around your home. That's 205-951-9717, or visit their website at alabamaprofessional.com. More of your text, your phone calls are welcome. 1-800-239-WJOX. It is Reaction Monday here on Three Man Front. Love to hear from you. 1-800-239-WJOX. A reminder, we will be at Social Taco tomorrow. Join us. Doors open up at 11 o'clock, but we're there each and every Tuesday from 10 until 2. So much has been talked about spring games. What is going on? What is happening? Well, it has been announced that Mizzou football will not be holding a spring game in 2025 or 2026. And that's due to Memorial Stadium Centennial Project construction impacts the field and the surrounding areas. So they've already announced that the next 2 years, there will not be a spring game for the Missouri Tigers. But Vanderbilt has announced that they are going to play a spring game on Saturday, April the 12th at 1 o'clock at First Bank Stadium. They will have their black and gold spring game. So Vandy is not following in the footsteps of Nebraska or Texas of saying that they're not going to play a spring game.
Is the timing of that not kind of interesting for Missouri, though? Wouldn't you have known in advance, like, hey, we're not going to be able to hold this? And now that other schools have started to announce it, maybe you felt like it was a more appropriate time. It's just, you can't tell me that you didn't know about this months ago and you just didn't say anything.
Well, they're not making a big deal out of it. There's a lot of news coming out of Missouri today. There's budget shortfall at the school. They're tightening the belt. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Good thing Dennis Gates saved him that $100,000 on the court storming last week.
That is correct.
It goes a long way.
So we do have the combine going on in Indianapolis, and I just saw this come across. According to an NFL executive, Troy Vincent, an NFL team has submitted a proposal to have the league ban the Philadelphia Eagles tush push.
Yeah, we've been down this road before, haven't we?
Now, the team is remaining anonymous, but someone has put it out there that they want this thing banned.
Gonna guess it's a team in the NFC East.
Probably right. It's probably the Cowboys.
Probably just gonna go out on a limb there.
It's also interesting because yesterday, Falcons CEO and NFL Competition Committee co-chair Rich McKay, he said the league will look at moving both the spot of a touchback to the receiving team's 35-yard line and moving the kickoff line 5 yards backwards. Such changes, which could be in either or situation, could come with the intent to boost return attempts even further. Now, as far as onside kicks, the committee and special teams coaches across the NFL are evaluating formations to increase the likelihood of a successful recovery. McKay also has said that he believes teams will again look at a 4th and 15 or a 4th and 20 attempt, replacing the traditional onside kick.
That's the way to go. I mean, onside kicks have gotten to the point, I don't know what let me see if I can pull them up real quick, but I mean, it's essentially impossible to recover an onside kick.
Why does the number 11%, or is it worse than that?
Let's see. Okay, so this is going back. So in is this the highest? Okay, so in 2017, there was a 21% success rate on onside kicks, actually. This past year, 6%.
Not so much.
To be fair, in 2023, it was 4%. So it got a little bit better, but still, I mean, a 4% chance of recovering an onside kick. I think both for the players as well as the viewership, I'd much rather see, all right, game's on the line. There's 30 seconds left. This team needs to get the ball back and kick a field goal to send it to overtime. All right, here's your 4th and 20 attempt. I'm all for that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and we've seen that in multiple spring leagues.
Yes.
In which they do that. But according to Rich McKay, the proposals for changing both the kickoff and the onside kick would likely be ready for consideration by the annual league meeting, which begins on March the 30th. So maybe that's why we're hearing some of these leaks coming out about a team wanting to ban the tush push, because with March 30th right around the corner, maybe they're trying to get it on the book so they can at least have a conversation or vote on it. Also, McKay, talking to reporters in Indianapolis, he was touching on the replay assist, says the committee spent 2 hours Sunday reviewing its implementation during the 2024 season and what potential plays could be added to an official review by the booth.
So more reviews, essentially, is what I'm getting from that. Or potentially opening the door for more reviews.
But I'm all for the 4th and 15 or the 4th and 20.
That'd be great television. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and I just think it's just so stupid with them having to announce, hey, we're going to have an onside kick, and you can't do it before the fourth quarter.
That defeats the entire. Yeah. I
mean, think about Alabama in the national championship game against Clemson. I mean,
the best onside kick I've ever seen. But yeah, you can't do that.
That changed the whole outlook of that game.
Alabama they won the game off of that play. Yeah.
But the NFL is obviously considering some other things as they get ready to move forward with some meetings. And
so I guess we'd look at that as a improvement in the safety area, because we know that's such a big part of things for the NFL now, is instead of having guys diving on an onside kick and potentially putting yourself at risk, I guess a 4th and 15 type play alleviates that a little bit. I do like the touchback rule though, because again, it's like, all right, you either need to make it where, kick returns are an integral part of the game, or just get rid of them altogether. Because it felt like the last couple of years, like, what are we doing? Just get rid of them. You obviously don't want them to play a major factor in the game. So if they're going to do that and essentially punish teams for kicking touchbacks or kicking it back out of the end of the end zone, I'm fine with that.
Roger Goodell has made it known this last year that he was not happy with the kickoff rule.
It wasn't great.
I mean, it's with the data that is coming out now with concussions being down in the NFL, and they say because of obviously helmet technology and the safety of the game and certain rules, that it is making a difference. And so maybe they want to kind of tweak the kickoff rule a little bit so it's still an exciting part of the game instead of just, why even kick it off? Just put the ball at the 30-yard line. Well, 35.
And I understand it's a difficult position for them because let's be honest. Okay, yes, watching somebody return a kick for a touchdown is exciting. What is the main draw of watching a kick return? You want to see somebody on the defensive team or somebody on the kicking team absolutely annihilate the person returning the football. And we're not going to get that anymore, right? And so it's finding a way to still making it an exciting part of the game. Because, I just don't think we're going back to the way that things were, a decade ago, where you could absolutely light some people up on kickoff returns. And that's how, a lot of guys kind of made their name of, hey, give me an opportunity on the defense. I'm going to go out here on special teams. Look how well I can go and go after the ball carrier. And, you're just not getting that anymore. So something definitely needs to be changed.
So we were talking about the men's basketball coaches poll that came out a few minutes ago in regards to Auburn not being the unanimous number one team. They are still number one. 28 of the 30 first place votes went to Auburn. Duke came in at number 2 with 2 first place votes. Florida, Houston, Tennessee has now leapfrogged Alabama as the Tide fell 2 spots to 6. St. John's 7. St. John's is playing really good basketball. They got a tie, a regular season tie for the conference championship yesterday when they knocked off UConn in Madison Square Garden. Michigan State's played really well. They're battling with Michigan for the Big Ten lead. That's a big one tonight between Michigan and Nebraska. Iowa State lost over the weekend to Houston in a very close game. They come in at number 9. And then tonight, Texas Tech has got a big game. I think it's against Houston, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So that is another monumental matchup in the Big 12 between 2 very good teams.
Absolutely. And coming up in 5-10 minutes, something like that, we'll get the AP poll for college basketball. It'll be interesting to see, is Alabama number 6 in the AP poll? Or are they only maybe number 5 they fell down to? Maybe they stay the same at number 4. But nonetheless, between the rankings and what we've seen from the latest bracketology, the Alabama-Tennessee game this weekend is going to be absolutely massive and could potentially have 1 seed implications on the line. So it'll be interesting to see how the AP poll looks in a few minutes.
You got a Stony Brook update for us? Oh, no. Well, let me look real quick.
Pat's been sweating bullets over here, Molly, for the last hour.
I can tell.
Let's see what we got. Hampton is up 39-25, live line 15.5 for Hampton.
It's the lunch hour here on Three Man Front. Welcome back into Jock's 94.5. Landrum on vacation this week, enjoying the slopes up there in Colorado. So myself, Conrad, Pat, Molly, we are here with you for 2 more hours as we continue to react to another excellent weekend of SEC hoops. We have some good SEC baseball starting off here. Good starts for both Alabama, Auburn, Troy doing very well, UAB having success. So a very good weekend if you are a fan of SEC athletics as a whole. We are currently awaiting the latest AP Top 25 poll for college basketball. We had the coaches poll come out a few moments ago. If you missed that, Alabama drops from number 4 to number 6. Auburn stays at number 1. Duke picking up a couple of first place votes, though. But you do have Auburn staying put at number 1. We would imagine that that's going to be the same case in the AP Top 25. Will be very interesting to see where Alabama, Tennessee, some of those other teams fall, if there's a little bit of flip-flopping going on like there is in the coaches poll. If you missed it over the weekend, though, it was a good weekend for both Alabama and Auburn on the hardwood. So Auburn in Neville Arena hosting the Georgia Bulldogs. Auburn able to escape with an 82-70 win in a game that, credit to Georgia. They played, they gave Auburn everything that they could have asked for and more. They hold Auburn to 29 points in the first half of that game, but unfortunately for Georgia, the offense just wasn't there. They only scored 24 points in the first half there. So Auburn gets a win, 82-70. Janai Broome, a big game, 31 points. 14 rebounds to lead the way for the Tigers. You also had Alabama at home hosting Kentucky, coming off of back-to-back losses. A must-win game for Alabama, just getting some of that mojo back before this 4-game stretch to end the regular season. So Alabama wins 96-83. Mark Sears has 30 points, back-to-back 30-point games for the first time in his career at Alabama, and the second player in SEC history over the last 20 years to have back-to-back 30-point games. So a great showing for him. Around the rest of the league, though, you did have Florida. They beat LSU 79-65. LSU went on a 20-2 run to end the first half of that one, take a big lead at halftime, but Florida storms back, wins 79-65. You had another top 10 matchup. Tennessee traveling to College Station to take on Texas A&M. Tennessee wins 77-69 there. Arkansas gets a big win over Missouri, 92-85, potentially securing their spot in the NCAA tournament. Oklahoma, they get a win over Mississippi State at home, 93-87. Vanderbilt with a little bit of an upset over the Ole Miss Rebels. They pull that one out 77-72. And of course, the game that we're all the most happy about is, of course, Lamont Paris and his South Carolina Gamecocks. They get their first win of the SEC play with a win over Texas, 84-69. So they're finally out of the bed. Well, they're still in the basement. They still have the worst record in conference play, but they are no longer winless in the SEC.
A couple of notes from a few of those games that you just mentioned. Let's talk about Florida over LSU 79-65. The Gators are now 21-1 versus unranked teams this season. That is tied for the second best mark in all of college basketball. Florida now has 5 straight wins, 11-3 in the SEC. LSU falls to 3-11. Also, it's so funny how Mizzou looked like a world beater against Alabama a couple of nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to Arkansas, and Arkansas forces 18 turnovers against the Missouri Tigers. And Big Z, who did not show up in the Auburn game for Arkansas, he scored a game-high 20 points.
And Caleb Grill for Missouri, who couldn't miss against Alabama, he started off hot, and then he didn't make a single shot in the second half of that game.
Couldn't hit water falling off a boat there in the second half. I understand the AP poll has just come out, Conrad.
Absolutely. So hot off the presses here, the latest AP Top 25 poll for college basketball, and no surprise, Auburn does stay in the number 1 spot. But unlike the coaches poll, they are a unanimous number 1. So again, in the coaches poll, Duke had picked up a couple first place votes, but in the AP, Auburn number 1, all 60 first place votes there for the Tigers. Duke, they move up a spot to number 2 in the rankings. Florida falls a spot. They're now number 3. Houston moves up a spot to 4. Tennessee at 5. Alabama falls 2 spots to number 6, just like we saw reflected in the coaches poll. You also have St. John's at 7, Michigan State at 8, Iowa State at 9, Texas Tech at 10 as far as the rest of the SEC goes. You have Texas A&M, who has fallen 5 spots. They were number 7 last week. They're now number 12. Missouri, they rise one spot with the big win over Alabama and then the loss to Arkansas. They're now number 14. And then we also have Kentucky. They stay put at 17 despite that loss to Alabama over the weekend. And then you have Mississippi State, the last SEC representative in the top 25. They are there at number 24. Ole Miss, based on the way that the extra votes go, Ole Miss would be the 27th ranked team. So just right there on the outside, looking in at the top 25. And another note, the number one team in the country, when we started off, we tipped off the season, Pat, the number one team in the country was Kansas. Kansas has now fallen out of the top 25 completely.
They are in trouble.
Rough stretch for them. Really, really rough stretch.
Think Griffin is happy he transferred from Alabama?
No, but I'm going to be completely honest with you, Pat. I haven't watched a single game this year where I went there and said, man, I really wish we had Ryland Griffin still. And that's nothing against him. It's just, the grass isn't always greener, as they say.
So this AP poll just coming out, and Alabama is at number 6. So this weekend, when they face off against the Tennessee Volunteers at Thompson Bowling Arena, it will mark Alabama's first ever game as an AP top 6 team facing off against another AP top 6 team on the road. Alabama has played 4 other top 6 games in program history. A home loss to Auburn earlier this month, a home win over Kentucky in '83, a home loss to Kentucky in 1977, and an NCAA tournament loss to Indiana in 1976. So pretty interesting the history we made this Saturday against Tennessee.
Yeah, and as I brought it up last hour, but that's a game right now where you have, according to Joe Lunardi at least, Alabama still on the 1 seed line. They are the 3rd overall seed, according to him. Tennessee, the 5th overall seed. So they're a 2 seed, but they are the 5th overall seed. So you wonder if Alabama goes and drops a game up there in Rocky Top to Tennessee this weekend, does that give Tennessee the ability to jump over Alabama? They then join the 1 seed line, and Alabama finds themselves on the 2 seed line. So a lot to play for this weekend, no doubt about it.
So Joe Lunardi, his update as of yesterday, there were 9 tournament locks from the SEC: Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, A&M, Kentucky, Mizzou, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. Bubble teams, according to Joe Lunardi, that are in the tournament: Texas and Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Arkansas, matter of fact, is one of the last 4 teams in. Georgia's lost to Auburn over the weekend. They are now out, according to Joe Lunardi. So if you're keeping score at home, that is 13 SEC teams in the tournament. The overall number 1 seed is Auburn. Duke is now number 2. Bama fell to number 3. And Florida is number 4, according to Joe Lunardi. Other conferences, the SEC would have the most with 13. The Big 10 would have 10. The Big 12 would have 8. The ACC and the Big East would have 4. Mountain West would have 3. The West Coast Conference would have 2. And then obviously everybody else would be a 1-bid league, including the American Athletic Conference, in which UAB is a member of.
Yeah, and Joe Lunardi, we brought this up earlier in the year because he has a spot, if you follow along with his bracketology, where he leaves a spot for a bid stealer, right? A team from one of these essentially 1-bid leagues like the American Conference, where, potentially just based on their resume, they would be able to rise up and take a spot. I think it's safe to say, right, let's say UAB goes and wins the conference tournament, they'll get an automatic bid. I think we all agree Memphis is still going to find their way inside of the tournament. But they are currently the leader in the American Athletic Conference, so that's why you don't have a bid stealer. But UAB was in that spot earlier in the year, and if they can continue to win, they certainly seem to be playing their best basketball, getting ready and close to conference tournament time. So a lot for them to play for right now.
Yeah, the biggest issue unfortunately for UAB, some opportunities for them to get some really quality wins at the first part of the season. They just did not play very well in these pre-conference tournaments.
It took them a while to find their groove.
Yeah, prime example. So let's look at the American quickly. You've got Memphis with a net ranking of 47. They're the highest American team. They're 6-2 in quad 1 wins. They're 4-1 in quad 2, 8-2 in quad 3, and they're 4-0 in quad 4. So needless to say, Memphis has played a very competitive schedule. UAB has the 4th best net ranking in the American Conference. So although they're number 2 in the standings, UAB's only had 2 quad 1 games this year. They lost both of them. They're 2-1 in quad 2 games, 3-5 in quad 3, and 12-1 in quad 4. You want to win those quad 4 games, but when you have that many quad 4 wins and not a lot of quad 1 or 2, that's a problem. We had Jerry Palm on the show on Friday, and he was telling us that if you add up your quad 1 through 3 wins, you did not need to be more than a game or two under 500. And that's problematic.
Yeah, and I mean, I would look at that, and obviously you have the one quad 4 loss, which doesn't look good, but 3 and 5 in quad 3 games, that's where it's going to come back to kind of bite you, because those are games that if you look at a tournament team, you would say, well, you should probably be able to win those games, or at least, maybe have a 6-2 record or something instead of a 3-5 record in those 8 games. But that's the beauty of it. You keep playing at a high level, you're going to get a chance in your conference tournament to go and win it all and find yourself in the NCAA tournament. You brought it up at the beginning of the show. You got to go to Wichita State and play in a place where Memphis fell fairly recently, but then on Saturday, a big one in Bartow as the Memphis Tigers come here. And that would, I just think that game, if you were able to win that, if you're UAB, that has to do wonders for your confidence going into the conference tournament that, hey, we have slain, I guess, the so-called giant here in the American Athletic Conference this year. Who's to say we can't do it again in the conference tournament?
So I was just talking about the Saturday game between Alabama and Tennessee. It will mark the 14th time in Nate Oates' era that Alabama in the regular season against an AP top 5 opponent. Alabama is 5-8 in those 13 games, with its most recent top 5 win coming in December of 2022 at then number 1 Houston. And Alabama won that game.
Yeah, that was a great game. I think we forgot to mention this earlier too, but Coach Oates actually broke Wimp's record over the weekend with that win over Kentucky. He now has the most wins against AP top 25 teams in Alabama history. So a very cool, a very cool moment for Nate Oates on Saturday.
Let's hear Nate Oates talk about him breaking Coach Wimp Sanderson's record.
I mean, honestly, I mean, Wimp did a really good job here. I'm guessing that the SEC is a lot better now, so there's a lot more opportunities to get top 25 wins than he probably had. And when they give you the opportunity, you take advantage of them and try to get it done. We don't have enough because we had a chance to get 2 more in the last 2 games before this, and we didn't come up with them. But, I think it does speak to the level of the SEC as a whole that now we've got all these opportunities. I mean, every team we play, the rest of the year is a top 25 team. So I'm guessing Wimp didn't have that many opportunities like we have, but you also got to go win them. So, a lot of credit to our guys we've had here. Herb's in the building today getting rehab on his shoulder. I mean, Herb got this thing going for us. And then you get, Shackelford and Quinterly and go down the list, Brandon Miller, Clowney, just a lot of players that stepped up in big-time games throughout the years. And now a lot of opportunities to get top 25 wins. So combination of the two, it's a good time for basketball in the state of Alabama.
So he gets that 26th win to surpass Wimp Sanderson's most ranked wins in program history. And I think Coach Oates said it best right there. There's more opportunities now.
Yes.
Than when Coach Sanderson, because we're just being honest, we have not seen the type of numbers in SEC basketball play like we've seen this year in regards to ranked teams. Because very typically in the years past, when Coach Sanderson coached at Alabama, you might have a situation where there might be 2 or 3 teams ranked in the top 25, and then you trying to play those teams during regular season, it just kind of hit or miss when you got an opportunity to play them. So
well, and as Coach Oates said, you still do have to win those games even if you have more opportunities. But for Wimp and what he was able to do during his time there in Tuscaloosa, when you don't have as many of those matchups, you're not going to be as prepared to play that kind of competition. So to still be able to have the amount of wins that he did back in the day at Alabama versus top ranked opponents is incredibly impressive. But yeah, I mean, like Nate Oates said, I mean, you got 4 more chances now to get that number as high as 30 before the end of the regular season. And as long as he doesn't go to North Carolina this offseason, you would imagine that streak's going to continue to grow. I'm just trying to put it out there. So, maybe if I say it, it won't happen.
But think about this. Saturday was his 8th this season.
It's remarkable.
Against a ranked opponent. 8 this year. Where, I mean, I have to go back and dust off the record books, but I would guess that it took Wimp Sanderson probably many years
to get 8 total.
Get 8 total. And so far, Alabama's been able to get 8 this year alone, and it could climb in the double digits very easily. So they've got an interesting schedule this week. SEC takes tonight off Tomorrow we've got 4 games. You got Florida at Georgia, Mississippi State at Alabama, Tennessee at LSU, South Carolina at Mizzou, and then Auburn will be one of the highlighted teams on Wednesday as they host the Ole Miss Rebels. You got Vandy at A&M, Kentucky at Oklahoma. Now that game looks a lot different.
Oh yeah,
than we thought about a week ago. And Texas is at Arkansas, so Arkansas can get on a little roll here. And what did Calipari say that was that their Elite Eight game? What was it this weekend?
It was the Elite Eight because
Okay.
Auburn was a Final Four, Alabama was a Final Four, Missouri was an Elite Eight. So if we're going based on what he said, Arkansas is going to make the Elite Eight because they won. They didn't beat Alabama or Auburn, so they're not going to win a Final Four game, but they can win an Elite Eight game or make it to an Elite Eight.
When we come back on Three Man Front, we will read your text messages on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. Calls are also welcome at 1-800-239-WJOX. We'll be at Social Taco tomorrow. Come by and see us. Have lunch with us. Doors open up at 11 o'clock there in Homewood at Social Taco. We'll be there until 2 o'clock. Join me and Conrad. Molly will be back here in studio. Hopefully she'll feel a little better. She's been under the weather, but she's playing hurt like a true team player today, and we appreciate
This
that.
is your Jordan game, Molly.
Yep.
This is.
Jordan flu game right here today.
So I was just seeing that it appears that the Philadelphia Eagles will not go to the White House. Is that correct, to celebrate their Super Bowl championship?
That's actually a good question, Pat, because it seems that nobody has a definite answer on this. So the story, because I believe it was yesterday where it started circulating on social media that the Eagles had rejected the White House invitation to go and celebrate and honor their Super Bowl victory there. And so it goes a little deeper than that, though. Apparently, a publication called the U.S. Sun, this is going back a couple of days before the Super Bowl was played, they put out a report saying that if the Eagles won the Super Bowl, that they were going to reject the invitation to the White House. It said that they had sources telling them that the players and front office got together and had a agreement as a group, we're not going to accept the invite, which is kind of a weird story to run 3 days before the actual game is played, right? So now, over the weekend, that story started circulating again, reporting that the Eagles, had they won, which they did, would turn down the offer to go to the White House. Well, the White House has now responded as of earlier this morning, and according to the White House, they have said that the invitation has not yet been extended to the Philadelphia Eagles to come celebrate their Super Bowl victory at the White House. So it has not been rejected because the offer has not officially been extended yet.
So where are we as a show? Just go around the room. Does it matter if a team turns down or goes to the White House, in your opinion?
In my opinion, if I was on a team that won a Super Bowl, I would want to go and that's part of the tradition of winning a championship. So it wouldn't matter
whether it was a Democrat or a Republican as president. If you played on that team, you would view it as an honor because you respect the title of president, whether you voted for that individual or not.
Absolutely.
I agree. I would go.
You'd
I mean,
go.
it's part of it.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
But are we to the point now where we shouldn't even just ask people whether you're a college football team, basketball team, swimming championships, or a Super Bowl champion? I mean, are we just past the point now of really having to do this?
Probably, which is really unfortunate because I think it reflects a lot of things about our society, not to get too political with it, but you just have to wonder what kind of climate is it going to take for it to not be viewed as it shouldn't be controversial, in my opinion, of, oh, well, does it look bad on us? Are our fans going to be upset with us if we accept the offer to go to the White? No, you won a championship. You're going to the White House. It is about more than who the president currently is that resides in office. It is an honoring your team and an incredible achievement that you and your teammates and your coaches and everybody in that organization accomplished. And I understand if you don't particularly care or you didn't vote for the guy that's in office, but it's bigger than that, in my opinion. It should be bigger than that.
So if Kansas City would have won, is there any doubt that Kansas City would have been there?
No, because they have pretty vocal leaders that I think we know would have been more than happy to attend.
I mean, there were some outspoken that obviously they are Trump supporters.
Well, Taylor Swift might not have been there, but
do you think Kelsey would have been there?
Yes.
I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. I just, it just seems like to me over the course of the last, I don't know, maybe a little even before the pandemic. I mean, it was funny when Trump would order McDonald's for Clemson or whoever was in there celebrating their national championship, or pizza. And then since the pandemic on, it just seems like this is, everybody is so scared that, they want to make a statement as a team. Yes. Or they just don't, whatever the case. So just stop inviting and just be done with the whole process.
So, when you're growing up or, even in, just the past, I guess before Molly and I would have been around or paying attention to this kind of stuff, was this ever a controversial thing back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s?
No, zero. It didn't matter if it was a Democrat or a Republican in office. It was the fact that you were getting an opportunity to go to the White House.
Because, I mean, even in my lifetime, I don't remember it being controversial until President Trump was elected the first time.
I mean, you would go and, they'd bring you a jersey and, whatever number president you were, that would be the number, and they'd put your name on the back of it, and there would be a photo op and that kind of thing. And that's what it was. But it just seems like within the last, I would say I'm not going to say it started when Trump came in the first time, but I mean, you could tell it was starting to kind of kind of lose a little bit of its luster for whatever purpose.
Well, and it's just the fact that every year now it's will they or won't they with every championship. That has become kind of a talking point, not a big one, but it's become a talking point of, well, if they win the Super Bowl, if they win the NBA Finals, if they win the national championship, are they going to accept it or are they not? And it's, to your point, maybe it's time we just get rid of that as a whole if it's going to be such a controversial issue.
Because then what's going to happen,
it should be,
because I think you read a statement back when the Eagles last won the Super Bowl, they turned down an invitation, correct?
Yeah. So back in 2018, when the Eagles beat, that was the Philly special year with Nick Foles when they beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. This was President Donald Trump's statement back
oh
in.
Boy.
This is back
I bet
in.
you this is a doozy.
This is back in 2018, after the last Eagles Super Bowl. His statement reads, quote, "The Philadelphia Eagles are unable to come to the White House with their full team to be celebrated tomorrow. They disagree with their president because he insists that they proudly stand for the national anthem, hand on heart, in honor of the great men and women of our military and the people of our country. The Eagles wanted to send a smaller delegation, but the 1,000 fans planning to attend the event deserve better. These fans are still invited to the White House to be a part of a different type of ceremony, one that will honor our great country, pay tribute to the heroes who fight to protect it, and loudly and proudly play the national anthem." End quote.
Okay.
The Eagles' response to that at the time was, quote, "It has been incredibly thrilling to celebrate our first Super Bowl championship. Watching the entire Eagles community come together has been an inspiration. We're truly grateful for all the support, and we're looking forward to continuing our preparations for the 2018 season."
Okay.
So I guess the writing was on the wall for this one.
Has Ohio State been invited to the White House?
I don't know. Let's see.
After winning the national championship? I have not seen that. I was curious.
Let us see. I don't know. Their women's hockey team went in 2024. I guess they won the women's hockey championship, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Not listed here yet.
Okay.
I would expect them to be there if they got them.
You think?
Yes.
I mean, Ryan Day didn't he do like Colbert and like he was on the late night talk show circuit there, or Jimmy Fallon? Didn't he do that?
Yeah,
it was one of those.
He did. Yeah, because he had the national championship trophy with them on, I think, Fallon. Which, I mean, yeah, good for him. But I guess I feel like, too, for college students, right? Like, that's if you're an adult and you don't want to do that, I don't know, if you're a college kid, like, that's a cool, you get to go to the White House. Like, there's not a lot of people that are going to get that opportunity. And, say what you will, but I mean, we remember when LSU won the national championship and they went there, and you can think it's silly or whatever, but they seemed like they had a good time. They posted, a bunch of those videos went viral of them dancing in the Oval Office. And yeah, I mean, you can think it's silly or whatever, but like, you could tell it obviously to them, like, this is a cool experience. We're going to make the most of it. And, I just think it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people that can't take that opportunity for what it is and kind of separate politics from the fact that you're being honored as a champion of the National Football League.
Is there any doubt that if the U.S. hockey team won the Four Nations championship, that they would have found a way to get that team to the White House?
100%.
And would they have shown up?
Yes.
I think so.
Listening to the Trump, did you hear the Trump phone call in the locker room?
Oh, yeah, when he called and, pregame. Yep. When
he was talking to the general manager of Team USA, and then he was like, well, all the guys are in the locker room now, Mr. President. Would you like to talk to him? So he put him on speakerphone and went, and just seeing the reaction, you could tell it fired up everybody on that hockey team, getting ready to play the Canadians. So
how many people get to say they've met and shook hands with the president, regardless of who it is, if you voted for him or not? That's pretty cool.
That's very cool. And, even back in the day after the World Series, there would always be a phone call from the president inside the locker room to congratulate whoever was the MVP, or, one of the funnier moments. And you can pull it up on YouTube and watch it, was when Pete Rose, and I can't remember if he was with the Reds at that time or with the Phillies, might have been the Phillies, and Ronald Reagan called into the locker room after the game, and the interaction between, because Pete Rose was Pete Rose.
Yeah.
He was pretty fiery individual, but it was a funny back and forth between, this was the height of the Cold War going on between the United States and Russia, and Reagan is going back and forth, having a good, fun conversation with Pete Rose. So you just don't see that anymore.
Unfortunately not.
No. More three-man front on this Reaction Monday. Your texts are welcome at 205-834-9450. Imagine that. We've got text messages coming in about that last topic we were discussing and some phone calls. 1-800-239-WJOX, the courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450.
Well, over the weekend, Wallace State softball went 3-1 at the JUCO Extravaganza tournament in Oxford, improving their overall record to 12-3 on the season. Lady Lions softball is now on the road this week for games at East Mississippi and Pearl River, and Wallace State baseball is in action on the road for a doubleheader at Columbia State tomorrow. If you're looking for more information on the Wallace State Lions athletics, go visit them online at athletics.wallacestate.edu.
All right, back to the text line we go. Conrad, you've got a full bank over there, so I'll let you read through those here on Three Man Front.
Yes. So we have Pat B, who texted in. He says, as a police officer, I had the opportunity to be on the presidential team with George Bush. Senior came to the BJCC, and I got a chance to shake his hand and be within 5 or 6 feet of him as he got out of the car and went into the BJCC. That's a cool experience. That'd be very cool. Let's see. Yes, somebody else texting in. They're not a fan of turning down an invite to the to the White House. Can't read that on air. Let's see. We have. Okay, so we have the somebody texting in saying, okay, so it's a tradition to go to the White House, but the current administration is not following American traditions, is what we're getting a response to that. Let's see. Michael texted in. Says, so it looks like we're going back to not going to the White House again after winning a championship. Because, yeah, that kind of seemed to go away a little bit for a couple years there. You want to connect the dots. Let's see. Somebody else texting in saying, Jake texting in and says, y'all need to let Molly go home and drink some honey tea. I feel bad for her.
Did you drink honey tea this weekend?
I actually did this morning.
Did you? Did it help?
A little.
Little?
Yeah. It's kind of nasty, though.
Let's see. Jerry from Hayden, he texted in and says, when Bear Bryant won the 3-1-5 game against Auburn, President Reagan called the locker room and Coach Bryant said, hello, Gipper. Classic Bear Bryant. It's a great story there.
Yep.
That is a great story. Let's see. Going back, we have some people also texting in about Alabama basketball. Looks like Casey texted in. He says they mentioned several times on the Alabama-Kentucky broadcast about multiple teams being interested in Nate Oates in the offseason. But doesn't he still have a $30 million buyout?
It's not 30.
Isn't it 18?
It's in the high 18s, maybe low 20s.
18.
18. Yeah.
Yep. So, which, I mean, that is a lot of money, but I mean, a program like, let's say, North Carolina, because that's been, I guess the hottest rumor, if you want to call it that. I mean, I feel like $18 million you could scrounge together if you view Nate Oates as this is the guy for the next 10, 15 years can lead North Carolina back to the promised land of being an elite team in college basketball. But we will certainly see. I mean, we saw this last year with Kentucky, right? We thought there was going to be a little bit of a run at Nate Oates by Kentucky, and maybe they did, but Alabama went and secured him and made sure that he was financially compensated so he wouldn't leave. And maybe you have to go back to that well again this year. Posey texted in, he says, I need Alabama to be the number 2 seed in the South region so I can see them and Auburn playing Atlanta when I go to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 matchups. Well, Posey, hopefully that works out for you. That would be great. Somebody texting in, they said, has Molly just tried walking it off yet? That'd be a good recommendation, Molly.
I'll try that.
Just walk it off.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody texted in, they says the White House Easter egg roll is a tradition too, and they hadn't updated the site to this year, so you can't sign up for the Easter egg. I guess the Easter egg hunt that they do on the lawn there. Let's see. I cannot read that one either, but somebody chiming in about why they would not go to the White House, or in the past why they would not have gone to a White House. So appreciate y'all continuing to chime in. 205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. You can also call in on the phone lines, 1-800-239-9569. Let's go to Steve, who has been waiting on hold, wants to weigh in on the Philadelphia Eagles. Steve, how you doing today?
Hey, fine. Kudos to Molly on the bumper music with the Toto. Excellent choice on that.
Way to go, Molly.
Thank you. I love Toto.
Yeah, Molly. So, first of all, on the rumor of Nate Oates, what's your source on the rumor? Is that
Conrad, what's your source of the rumor?
Is that Don the Auburn fan that's giving that information, or is this a credible source?
No, it's just, you have sources around North Carolina that, North Carolina has not been the usual up to snuff this season, and there's a belief that Hubert Davis could be on the way out. And so, people just put together these hot boards. It's similar to like a situation like Indiana. I guess that one's more definite in terms of what's going to happen. But that's when you heard Bruce Pearl of, well, he said in the past that this was his dream job. And, I think with Nate Oates, it's just similar. He said some comments in the past about like Kentucky, for example, and how, he loves a university where basketball is at the forefront. Basketball is kind of the number one sport. And, you just put 2 and 2 together and you go North Carolina, Nate Oates. Okay, maybe there'd be a conversation there.
I'm sorry, you said Nate Oates made the comments about basketball being the number one thing at the school. Is that what you said?
After the Kentucky game this year, when Alabama went and played at Rupp Arena, he had some very high praise for the fan base and and the organization and just how much he loved being at a place that was run by basketball.
Yeah, I think he was just talking about playing in front of a traditional, but blue blood, that's all that is. I talked to somebody that is down in Tuscaloosa. They say he's really happy, his kids, everybody, the whole family. So anyway, I think y'all fanning that flame. And I honestly thought it was Pat, the contrarian, the UAB.
Hey, it was not me this time.
I mean, I'm not putting it out there because I want it to happen. I'm just saying, those are things that you're going to hear come up in the offseason.
Well, I mean, if you're going to report every fake news, though, Conrad, you lose credibility.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so you're saying if North Carolina fires Hubert Davis, you don't think they would be interested in going after Nate Oates? You don't think they would want to have a conversation with him?
No, I think you're speculating. Number one, okay, hypothetical, but number two, I don't. I don't think that. No, I think they'll go after. I think Nate is not interested. Let me move to Philadelphia because I think it's a sad commentary on organization when they make it political. And I hope there's a big outcry with the Philadelphia fans. I mean, they're known for letting it loose on what they think, and there are a lot of blue collar type fans there. And because I honestly, I've rooted for them, but if they did this and made it political, I'll never root for them again, despite how many Alabama fans they have. I'm just, and it doesn't matter. I'm just a fan, but I just think that's a sad commentary on the organization, and I think it's reflective of the NFL culture as a whole, unfortunately. And somebody put pressure on that ownership, is my opinion, from the NFL down because of the culture that they have created. That's just my opinion, but I'm going to listen to see what y'all think. But have a great day.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate you, Steve.
Appreciate that very much. And what's so ironic is the majority of the ownership of the National Football League are staunch Republicans. Now, that doesn't mean that the locker room feels the same way as the ownership does. But yeah, maybe it's just time for us just to stop inviting people to the White House, although the White House is supposed to be the people's house.
It's just a shame that it feels like that has to be a political statement one way or the other, right? Like you should just be able to go, and maybe that's just, more of a comment on, our society as a whole, but you should be able to go and accept that and enjoy it for what it is and honoring your accomplishment as a team, as opposed to feeling like, well, if we say yes or no, it's going to be viewed as a political statement and one side's going to be, happy about it. One side's going to be mad about it. I just don't think that should be the case personally, but that's the world we live in.
We will continue to take your text as well as your phone calls at 1-800-239-WJOX. Welcome back in. It's Three-Man Front on this Monday, Reaction Monday. A little bit of news out of college football. Northern Illinois has accepted an invitation to join the Mountain West Conference. They will now join the Horizon League.
Watch out, Notre Dame.
In all sports except wrestling and gymnastics, because those are not offered by the Horizon League. So they will become a football-only member in the Mountain West Conference beginning in 2026. So if you're looking at a globe, if you're at your office right now, and you're taking a look at where they are geographically located in DeKalb, Illinois, they are now going to have to travel to wonderful Manoa, Hawaii to play a football game.
Sounds awful.
Meanwhile, there will be in a basketball league in which they will go to a place like Moon Township, Pennsylvania.
It's called Moon Township?
That is correct.
Never
in
heard
Pennsylvania.
Never heard of that one.
Mm-hmm. Sure is. So you got two extremes. You're going to have to go to Manoa, Hawaii to play football and to Moon Township, Pennsylvania to play basketball.
A little bit different there. I think you're going to prefer one to the other, if I had to guess.
Very, very much so. Let's go back to the text line, and it has been a Reaction Monday for sure. A myriad of topics at 205-834-9450. Absolutely.
We have Bama Hater chiming in. We were talking about, I guess we turned from, the White House visit thing to just cool people you've met. So Bama Hater chimes in. He says, I met Wimp Sanderson at the AHSAA finals back last year in 2024. He says he got to meet Lou Williams at an AAU tournament in 2024, former sixth man of the year in the NBA. Let's see. He says he met Regina King in Philadelphia and got a hug and a picture.
Oh, that's cool.
And he adds in that Molly needs a little shine, lemon, rock candy, and honey, and you'll be good to go tomorrow.
Rock candy.
I don't know.
How about some shine?
I'll try that too.
So we got a lot of suggestions in coming in here. Oh, we have somebody saying, did Molly drink sugar honey iced tea?
So what did you drink? You told me that you've had a lot of broth, right? And soup.
I had a lot of soup all weekend. This morning though, I'd found like a lemon tea just at the store.
Did that help?
No.
No?
It did not.
Let's see. We have,
and it was not good.
And it was not good. Let's see. William texts in. He says, somebody's freaking out about Nate Oates to North Carolina rumors. Yeah. Steve did not seem very happy about that. And to clarify, no, there's no report out there where Nate Oates has come and said, hey, if North Carolina offers me the job, I'm leaving.
Why are you
and
spreading rumors?
Because there was a report out of North Carolina a couple weeks ago that they might move on from Hubert Davis. And if they did,
why are you trying to take my spot on the show as being the contrarian, as Steve said I was?
I am just trying to prepare everybody for.
I've been good. I haven't done anything controversial today. I haven't said anything. I wasn't a smart ass. I mean,
oh, this is a first.
Pat, we have an hour and 10 minutes to go. So be careful.
We still have time for me to open my mouth and insert my foot.
So to clarify for anybody that was concerned about that, no, there's no official report out there that he is going to.
Why do you keep talking about it?
Because I'm trying to just tell
You've already
people,
clarified your statement. Move on.
It'll be a conversation in the offseason. All right, Smokey text in. He says, how much longer do you think Rick Barnes will coach at Tennessee? Also, would Bucky be a possible replacement for him? It seems Danny White likes young, up-tempo coaches.
There is another.
Oh, no, Pat, we can't talk about this.
No, I didn't want to say rumor. I said speculation.
We can't talk
There's
about
a difference between a rumor and a speculation.
Can't speculate.
You can speculate all day long. That perhaps Rick Barnes, which you're not going out on a limb when you say this, that he's potentially towards the back end of his career.
He's 70.
And he could perhaps decide, okay, well, this is enough. And I do believe that whether it's Rick Barnes or somebody else, I think Bucky would be someone that most definitely teams and schools would want to have a conversation with. He's just done a fantastic job at Sanford.
Absolutely. Let's see. Malachi texted in about the White House. He says, I don't think the organization should make an executive decision on behalf of all the players to skip out or to visit the White House. I mean, I agree with that as well. But the report that did come out about the Eagles before the Super Bowl was that it was an agreement between the players and it was everybody in the organization. But we don't know if that report is valid now. Let's see. Somebody texting in, they say, I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially everything's political. Let's be honest, as Americans, we hate everyone who doesn't just agree with us. And that is a yes. Let's see. Said in Birmingham, he texted in, he says, if the report is true, the Eagles would have voted on it, which is what the report said. This is still a Democratic country last time I checked, no matter how much one man claims to be the president. Fun note, this tradition was started by President Carter of inviting championship teams to the White House. I did not know that. That's a cool piece of history. Dave texts in, he says, didn't Northern Illinois beat Alabama while Nick Saban was the head coach? I mean, it would have been 2007. That was not, they did not lose to them that year, did they?
No, Northern Illinois did beat Alabama, but I believe that was under Shula.
That was in 2003. Yep. Northern Illinois 19, Alabama 16.
Oh yeah. I was on the radio on that Monday. I mean, that was some dark times if you're an Alabama football fan, because you had Central Florida came up here and beat Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium. You had Northern Illinois beat Alabama. And then when Nick Saban got there, you had La Monroe beat Alabama. Made some great radio shows on Monday.
Let's see. All right. Somebody's not happy we were talking about anything loosely related to politics. Let's see. Somebody, Zach, texted in and says, that guy's avoiding the obvious if he thinks North Carolina or any other blue blood for that matter wouldn't call Nate Oates after getting rid of their coach. Yeah, he called you out for speculating on a talk radio show. Shame on you. Yes, thank you. I'm glad somebody understands that. Let's see. Steve says, Molly, why don't you just get a steroid shot? See, people are just trying to help you out, Molly. I think the
that's awfully kind that they're trying to help
the
you
rock
out.
candy and honey maybe is easier to come across.
Yeah, probably.
Don't have to go to the doctor for that, at least.
Have you tried just straight whiskey?
Not yet, but that's on my list. I need an ID to go get some. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you used to work at a liquor store. Don't y'all have like some sort of, network where...
Like an alliance.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you were like 13 when you worked at the liquor store.
Basically, I was, yeah.
Let's see. Somebody texted in and says, hey, Conrad, how about your home team, Hayden Wildcats boys basketball teams running the 5A state tournament? Yes, they made it to the Elite Eight, I believe, which is the furthest that they've ever made it in the history of Hayden Athletics. So very good. Congratulations to Coach Glover, who was there when I was there. A great coach, great guy.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law who went to Hayden.
That's right.
And she gives me all this dirt on Conrad.
That's right.
Back in the day. She was telling me the other night at dinner that Hayden's basketball team is having quite a year. So I was like, that's awesome.
We've come a long way from my senior year of high school, losing by 99 points to Winona in the first round of the playoffs.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. Dead serious.
99 points.
Yes, that is not an exaggeration.
Wow.
So, yes, great job by Coach Glover. He's brought that program a long way. So, yeah, shout out to my alma mater, the Hayden Wildcats. Ryan texted in. He says, I'm a Tennessee fan. Bucky is very highly thought of by Danny White. Talk shows in Knoxville have already uncovered and discussed that interest.
Interesting.
So that's something maybe to keep an eye on there.
Well, you heard Martin Newton on our show last week, and Martin understands. He knows basketball as well as anybody in this country, and he knows that Bucky McMillan is a very special coach, very fast riser in the industry, and one day Bucky might have an opportunity to move on, and you just wish him well if those days come.
Let's see. We have somebody chiming in, saying, NIU beat Shula. They had Michael Turner as their running back at that time, who was nicknamed the Afterburner. That was back in 2003 when they knocked off the Crimson Tide. Jimmy texting in, he says, is the White House making it political if they don't invite the Eagles to celebrate at the White House? Let's see. Gavin texted in. He says, I was in attendance for the 2003 NIU game. That 2003 Alabama team was one of the worst teams I've ever seen. Not a great year. And we have Damian texted in. He says, if the Eagles don't want to go, how about we send the 3-time defending champions of the Spring League, the Birmingham Stallions, to the White House to celebrate?
See, now that And now that you mention it, and I've really never thought of it,
It's a great idea.
Why did the Stallions not be invited before? Why didn't Biden invite them, and why hasn't Trump invited them? The Stallions should be there.
I agree. And finally, not a remedy for Molly, but someone just says Molly's just sick because Nebraska backed out of their series with Tennessee.
That's true.
She's just getting early sick because Michigan's going to beat them tonight in basketball.
One o'clock here on Three Man Front. Conrad, Pat, and Molly here with you for another hour before we get you set for the Paul Feinbaum show coming up at 2 o'clock. It's been a great reaction Monday here so far, recapping big wins for both Alabama and Auburn on the hardwood over the weekend. Auburn staying at number one, a unanimous number one in the latest AP poll that was released earlier today. Alabama sliding back to number 6 in the AP poll. You had a big wins from UAB and Samford as well over the weekend. So a great weekend for college hoops, really across the state of Alabama with all of the teams that we cover. I do want to correct something here that I said at the end of last segment, though. I said that my senior year of high school, Hayden lost by 99 points to Winona in the playoffs. I was wrong. They lost by 98 points. It was only 98. I'm sorry. It was 154 to 56 was the final score of that game. Yeah, my friends were not very happy after that.
I mean, so first off, you're speculating on Nate Oates taking the North Carolina job, and now you're giving out erroneous information about Hayden High School losing by 99 points in a playoff game.
I know they only lost by 98. I apologize.
What's going on here?
Been a rough last 20 minutes for me. I apologize. I will do better.
Oh, yeah, you want a Stony Brook score. Let's see what's going on. Oh, you've been checking it out?
I had to keep up with it.
Huh.
Well, the game is over.
I was unaware. Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh.
It ended about 20 minutes ago.
I just was noticing that the Euro Basketball League, we've got North Macedonia up over Poland 69-61 right now.
Big time.
Live line is -7.5.
It's huge.
Don't know if you're interested, Molly, in North Macedonia.
I don't think so.
I haven't watched the film yet.
I haven't either.
How about Estonia and Lithuania?
What's the line on that one?
Right now, live line is -6.5. Lithuania is up 70-64.
That's free money.
How about Slovenia and Israel? Does that interest you?
Maybe a little.
Just started. 2-0 Slovenia. Early
Still
start.
early.
How about Georgia and Serbia? And I'm not talking about the University of Georgia.
Thanks for the
So
clarification.
none of these are interest to you. Okay. Wow. Did you know the FIBA Asia Cup is going on right now?
Couldn't have told you that.
Bahrain is playing Syria. I was unaware that Syria had a basketball team.
I was as well. But hey, the more you know. Just something
I'm
else
not being
to
ugly.
lock in
I
on.
mean,
fair.
the country's in turmoil. I just didn't know that they had a national basketball team that was.
Yeah, they might be doing something else, you thought? Yeah.
And meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates is playing Lebanon right now. Lebanon is a 21.5-point favorite if you're interested.
I'm sure somebody playing in that tournament, they'll be like the #1 pick in the NBA draft in a couple years. And we've never heard of them. And this will be where they get their, they'll be the next, Giannis or Luka or somebody like that.
Okay, so we were just talking about Northern Illinois. They are going to go off and play in the Mountain West Conference in a couple of years, okay? For football only. They're going to try to stay close to home, and they're going to play in the Horizon. So I know that we were playing some audio the last couple of weeks of UCLA not being very happy. Mick Cronin.
Mick Cronin not being happy, yeah.
Yeah, about them flying and being on the East Coast, all that kind of stuff. So Eric Musselman, who was at Arkansas until last year, he is now the head basketball coach at the University of Southern California. So he was asked by a reporter about them having to fly to the East Coast and just the way the schedule is working out in the new Big Ten with those West Coast teams being a part of the Big Ten Conference. Take a listen to this exchange between Eric Musselman and the media.
What can you do for the last 2 weeks to get yourself in the Big Ten tournament, going in the right direction?
I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of things that factor. Number one, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, USC, we're in the hole 2 to 4 games based on travel. And it's going to be that forever for men's basketball. So you either got to do it UCLA women and USC women, and you got to have far superior talent in order to survive all this. This is the same trip that Coach Cronin, had his, and unless you're doing it or have done it in the past, which no one has done it unless you've been in the NBA. And when you travel 3 time zones and you're out here for 6 days, and we're going to get back right now, we're supposed to stop in Kansas City or Tulsa. We're going to get back roughly at 3 a.m. Then we're going to bus. And then they're going to go to class at 8. And you're not going to be in your bed even to try to attempt to sleep until 4 a.m. And then you have a class in 4 hours, which means you got to get up, you got to shower, you got to get to class. So, should a West Coast team be playing a game at 6 o'clock at night? By the way, Ohio State's in Los Angeles and has been there for 2 days. And they played several hours before us. But yet we're the team that has to travel cross country, and then our body clocks have to readjust. So is that why we lost tonight? No, I'm more worried about the travel affecting our game at Ohio State than I am this game, because when the schedule came out, the game that I thought we would be most affected by is Ohio State.
So what do you think about this? I mean, we've heard Mick Cronin, and Mick Cronin is one of these guys that obviously he looks like he's the stay off my yard type guy.
He just seems kind of sad.
Yeah, he's mad about everything. Yells at the clouds. And now Musselman, I mean, he bitched and complained when he was in the SEC. He complained last year about them having
the timing of their tip-off.
Yeah, an early morning game. It was 11 o'clock tip-off on a Saturday. I mean, come on.
Because they had to play in the evening on like a Wednesday night or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the case may be. So now he brings up, I mean, him and Mick Cronin both make some very good points because I do think it benefits the teams from the East when they come to sunny Southern California in the middle of wintertime.
Absolutely.
I mean, meanwhile, you take these Southern California guys and you're dropping them in a cornfield in Iowa or Minneapolis, Minnesota, you know, when you freeze your tail off getting off the bus, walking into the barns they play in the Big Ten. But I mean, the bottom line is that the administration doesn't care because football rules the day. I've said it a million times, 85 cents of every dollar that is generated is because of football. So it sucks for these basketball teams, but you made the deal with the devil and you've got to deal with it now.
He wanted to be the head coach at USC, correct? He wanted this job. He left Arkansas to take this job.
And when he took the job, he knew that the Big Ten Conference was expanding and Southern California was going to be playing in the Big Ten Conference.
Yes,
It's not like he took the job and then all of a sudden it got forced on him that I've got to now go to Iowa City to play a basketball game.
No, and that's exactly my point. If this was a situation where he had been at USC for a decade and now you're dealing with this, I might have a little more sympathy for you. But you chose to go to this university and take this head coaching job, knowing what the schedule was going to look like, knowing the travel was going to be inconvenient, and now you're complaining about it. And I know he mentioned, the women's team a little bit and their talent, but okay, two of the top 3 or 4 teams, 2 of the top 4 teams in women's basketball are UCLA and USC. They're traveling the same amount that you are. They're still having success. Granted, yeah, you could say they have more talent on their rosters than the men's team does at USC, but still, like, you took this job willingly. You knew what the schedule was going to look like, and you have a women's team on the same campus that is one of the best teams in college basketball, going and traveling a very similar schedule, going through a lot of the same obstacles that you are, and it's not affecting them.
Yeah, I just, once again, when those comments started making the rounds over the weekend, people were very quick to point out that this is, hey, I mean, the Big Ten and these schools that join the Big Ten, you know what you're getting when you were getting into.
Yeah, you signed up for this.
And the amount of money that you're getting, the media rights deal, allows a school like UAC to overpay Eric Musselman.
I mean, yeah, if you didn't want to travel, cross country, then stay in the SEC where it's regional. And you were perfectly fine doing that. But now it's just, he's the kind of guy, he's going to find something to complain about wherever he goes. As you brought up last year, there were problems with the tip-off times. Now there's problems with the travel. And I agree with, what you said and what Mick Cronin said about it does benefit, if you're a Minnesota going to play in Southern California.
Well, he brought it up. You had Ohio State that came out to Southern California and they get to rest and relax and get out in the sun and enjoy some nice weather and then play some basketball and then get back and fly east where these West Coast teams, I mean, it is more of a culture shock.
Then don't go and be the head coach of USC basketball. That would be my response. You wanted this job, you left where you were and you had a good thing going and you decided to leave and go to USC. Well, that's fine, but that comes with consequences. And if that means you have to have inconvenient travel situations for the foreseeable future, you knew what you were signing up for. And if you didn't, then that's on you for not taking a long look at this before you agreed to become the head coach at USC.
Well, I was just glad that Mick Cronin got a big win over the weekend.
That was big.
His 500th win as a basketball coach.
Did he smile?
I don't think so.
Probably.
I don't think so.
Something's wrong, I'm sure.
The SEC has announced that Mark Sears has been named the SEC Player of the Week.
Oh, good. That's cool. Back-to-back weeks. You had Denver Jones for Auburn last week, and now Mark Sears this week. So back-to-back for Alabama and Auburn. Very cool.
Back-to-back 30-point performances for Mark Sears as the Tide ended the 2-game losing streak to Auburn and Mizzou with a win over Kentucky over the weekend. So spending a lot of time talking about basketball. We've got, of course, Alabama playing tomorrow night. That will be one of the featured games as they host Mississippi State. I will be the first to admit, and we talked to Blake Lovell about this on Friday, I really thought that Mississippi State was about to get on a torrid heater in regards to the rest of the SEC schedule. And I was as shocked as anybody to see Oklahoma do what they did. That was just extremely shocking. Jeremiah Fears, 27 points. Sooners, they were on a 5-game losing streak. And this is why Oklahoma continues to be mentioned as one of those teams that's going to make the tournament. They're the 4th ranked victory over Mississippi State by Oklahoma. And so think about this. They're 4-10 in the SEC, but they've got 4 ranked wins this year, and they host Kentucky this week. So
I was about saying those wins over Arizona and Michigan still look pretty good. Now, if the Corn, knocks off Michigan tonight, Molly, maybe that doesn't help them out as much. But yeah, I mean, you certainly see why they're still right there in the thick of the things. You got Kentucky, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Texas. So that's 4 games coming up against teams that at least right now are in the NCAA tournament. So I imagine, you go 2-2 in this final stretch, you're probably sitting pretty good if you're Oklahoma.
61 total games are on the college basketball schedule tonight. We've already had one. What was the final there, Molly?
I think it was 81-49.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Ouch. Nebraska is a 1-point underdog at home tonight against Michigan.
Does Michigan get complacent because their coach just got an extension?
Ooh, I think so. I
Another-
mean, you know who I'm going to take.
Well, Michigan, obviously.
Well, no.
Yeah, the Wolverines. There's no doubt. Houston is a 1.5-point favorite at Texas Tech. That's another really good game. Kansas is only a 6.5-point favorite against Colorado at Colorado.
That's a great unranked matchup tonight.
It is very much so. And I know Molly, she'll be tuned into, she'll have a split screen of the Minnesota Northwestern game tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
It's huge.
That will be big. So yeah, that should be a fun time. More of your text, your phone calls as well. We'll do some Pat Ponders a little bit later in this hour. Paul Feinbaum at the top at 2:00. This is Jocks 94.5. 117, Jox 94.5 on this Reaction Monday. We welcome your calls at 1-800-239-WJOX. Let's go back to the phones. Troy joins us on this Reaction Monday. Hey, Troy, hope you're doing well.
Hello, guys. Thanks a lot. I am driving across Oklahoma here.
Oh, boy. How's everything in the wonderful Sooner State?
It's windy. It's nice, though. The weather really changed for the warmer, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question about Alabama's position in the tournament. I was wondering what might be more valuable, what might go better for them, a win at Auburn, or let's say compared to winning the tournament without playing Auburn. You know, a win at a number one team's home court seems like in March would seem like it'd be very valuable. But how does that compare to if they won the tournament, like I said, without having played Auburn in the tournament?
So let me make sure this is correct. So you're asking, would it be better for Alabama to beat Auburn in the last regular season game than it would be for Alabama to win the SEC tournament if they didn't play Auburn in the championship game, essentially?
Yeah, what would be more valuable for them in their as far as their position in the NCAA tournament?
Probably the regular season win over Auburn, just because by the time you get to that point in the SEC tournament, I mean, the bracket's kind of already made up for you. And if you could have a win on the road against the number one team in the country going into the postseason, I would think that would maybe bode better for you, especially if let's say you lose to Tennessee and you find yourself on the 2 seed line. I think that would bump you up to a 1 seed and that would help you out more. I don't know if you agree with that, Pat.
I do agree.
I tend to agree with that too. I'm not too excited about the SEC tournament. It's like all the teams have the hay in the barn, and there might be one bubble team, which is Oklahoma, but I can't think of another bubble team in the SEC that's gonna fare better having played a good tournament. I'm not sure.
No, that's a good question, Troy. Appreciate you calling in there. And yeah, that's going to be it'll be interesting to see how much movement you get in bracketology from the SEC tournament, just because a lot of the teams that are going to be in the SEC tournament are already in the NCAA tournament, but are some teams able to jump up a seed line or two, or maybe fall a seed or two based on, how they perform in Nashville?
All right. So Vegas has just updated their national championship odds for the college basketball men's championship. Auburn still number one. They have 13-4 odds. That's plus 325 on the money line to win the national championship. Followed then by Duke. Duke's odds are actually down, but they're still second best. Third best odds is Houston.
Okay.
Their odds have fallen, but they're still third best. Florida, they have fallen. They're 17-2 odds of winning the national championship. That's plus 850. Now, Alabama, last week, they were 9-1 to win the national championship. They're now 11-1.
Just keep on tumbling.
Tennessee is next at 16-1, along with St. John's. Iowa State at 20-1. You've got Arizona, Texas Tech at 33-1. Michigan State, Mizzou, Wisconsin at 40-1. First time I've seen Mizzou that high. Matter of fact, after they beat Alabama, they went from 66-1 odds of winning the national championship to 40-1. That's how much it's gone up after that win against Alabama, and then they lost to Arkansas. You've got Kentucky and Texas A&M at 45-1, and then you've got Gonzaga, Maryland, and Michigan all at 50-1. So some pretty interesting odds this week as that was just released.
Well, that's a perfect segue. We'll go back to the Jox text line, 205-834-9450. You can chime in here on the courtesy GMC text line, as many of you have done throughout the show. And the first question we have is, so of the next tier SEC teams, which one are y'all buying the most stock in right now? They give us Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Kentucky, or Missouri. And I think right now, I know they just lost to Arkansas, but what I'm seeing from Missouri, they are built like the kind of team that if they get hot in NCAA tournament time, they can shoot the lights out. So I'd probably lean Mizzou.
Oh, I'd definitely lean Mizzou. It's my team.
Before this weekend, I would have said Mississippi State, but now I was all ready to declare Mississippi State as the team to watch out for, and they still may be, but man, they're
a tricky one to put your finger on.
That was tough. what happened at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Real tough.
And it doesn't get any easier with who you have to play tomorrow, going and playing Alabama at Coleman Coliseum. Let's see. All right, we have somebody else texting in. What do you think Alabama's downfall was against Auburn? Do you think they have what it takes to beat Auburn in Neville Arena, or is Auburn simply too good? I mean, I look at it. If Alabama plays the same way they did in the last game, but you shoot the ball a little bit better, then I think you can win that game. But asking Alabama to go on the road to Neville and only turn it over, 7 or 8 times, I think that's a very difficult thing to ask, but I certainly think they can win that game.
You know, the Auburn game, and I understand that Nate Oates, it's the flow of the game of your substitutions and the things that you do. But, you know, against Auburn, it seemed like Holloway just did not have that same kind of role that you've been seeing in other games.
It was almost like they were trying to protect him, or maybe they didn't feel like the emotions maybe would get to him or something. Because, yeah, I mean, he didn't play.
But there's a reason why Auburn has been number 1 for most of the season and why you never win at Neville Arena. Now, I know Florida had a very special day and knocked off Auburn earlier this year, but, I mean, that's just a tall task for anybody to go in there and win at Auburn right now.
Yeah. So long story short, yes, is Alabama good enough to do it? Yes. But will they actually do it? You know, gotta be able to limit those turnovers and play better defensively. Let's see. We have, okay, somebody else not a fan of the White House conversation. Let's see. Michael's text in, did Eric Musselman take his shirt off while complaining about traveling and playing basketball in the Big Ten? Hopefully not. Hopefully.
Well, at least he's now
not.
coaching at a place where you can take your shirt off because it's very seasonable. So, I mean, it's warm.
We have somebody chiming in or asking a question about the Alabama baseball from yesterday. They say, why was Alabama's baseball team shooting birds to the internet in that picture? I think that was just their way of wanting to celebrate the comeback win over Ohio State. And look, as I said earlier, if you want to do that stuff and keep it, you know, within your group chat, you want to keep that amongst the team, I have no problem with it. But yeah, maybe don't go post that stuff on social media because, I mean, you know how that stuff is going to react. And I know that the player did then later apologize. And so hopefully that is that. But yes, they were celebrating the comeback victory. They were down 10-0 to Ohio State, came back to win 12-10. All right, Molly, you don't have to do this, but Luke has texted in and said, can we get Molly's best Go Big Red with a sore throat?
Go Big Red.
There we go. I'm fired up now for the game tonight. Let's see. Somebody texting in saying, the Pirates took it to Molly Seawolves earlier today. Pat, I hope you didn't play that game. I hear there's table tennis available as well. What's your best play tonight for college basketball if you have one?
I like Michigan. Sorry, Molly. It's no offense. I like Michigan.
I'll remember that.
Okay. Well, just tack it up with all the other things that you get mad at me about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Michigan tonight. Michigan's playing really, really good, but they are playing in Nebraska. Nebraska plays very well in that arena. So
let's see. We have another person chiming in. They say, go Vols. Hope Molly gets to feeling better soon. I am also waiting to go into the doctor's office while I listen to you guys. Well, we hope that you hopefully have gotten back there out of the waiting room and that you get to feeling better. And we appreciate you taking us with you to the doctor's office.
So Molly, you were texting me Saturday morning, give me an update because you started feeling bad Friday before the end of the show. So you were able to get, I guess, an appointment at an urgent care.
Yeah.
And so you just waited at your house. So you didn't, how long, once you got to the urgent care, I'm just curious, how long did you have to, did you like go in 5 minutes before your scheduled appointment time and then you walk right back, or how did that work?
I went in about 10 minutes, but I did all of like the paperwork
Online?
and stuff online, so I didn't have to do it there. So I probably waited like 10 minutes. I think there was one person
that's
in
good.
front of me.
That's good.
Yeah, and I was in and out pretty quick.
Because I was in an urgent care about 3 weeks ago, and that was a 4.5 hour in the lobby.
Wait, you were in the waiting room for 4.5 hours?
That is correct.
Did you do an online appointment?
Yes.
Oh, no.
So that's why I was curious.
No, yeah. I got lucky.
That's brutal. I've never had to wait 4.5 hours at an urgent care. There
were so many people in there that they had to shut the doors.
Oh.
Like they were turning people away.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. That is not good. Let's see. We have Steve chiming in. He has a new nickname for me. He says, Conrad, you are now the MSNBC of Jocks 94.
Yes, he is. That's a great, I'm so glad that people are finally understanding where your political leans are.
Thank you, Pat. It's always my dream to work at MSNBC, and unfortunately, I just had to end here at Cumulus Media. Jocks 94.5. All right, Tony texted in, and then again, it is really sweet. We have so many listeners today that have texted in different suggestions for how Molly can get over her illness.
Well, I hope she's writing these down. I hope she's going to go home because
they're great
I have
recommendations.
I've gotten some tea.
What's your favorite? The margarita one? Is that still your favorite?
Probably the margarita with the tahini.
That was a good
or the
one.
moonshine. That was creative.
All right. Well, Tony has an idea for you. He says, Molly, do you have a sore throat or are you just hoarse? If you have a sore throat, I recommend putting an aspirin near the back of your tongue to let it dissolve. It's going to taste really bad, but he says it works like a charm.
Wow.
Okay.
Not heard that one before.
Question, I have both a sore throat and I'm hoarse.
Oh, I thought you were saying you had moonshine and margarita at your house.
No, but I have my ways.
And then we have somebody texting in from the state of Tennessee. They say, just tuning back in, what's up with this AP poll? Why did Tennessee and Houston leapfrog Alabama? Well, for Alabama, I mean, you lost back-to-back games. I think that obviously plays a big part of it. Houston got a big win over Iowa State, who's a very highly ranked team. So I think that explains that one. And then for Tennessee, you didn't lose. I think that pretty much sums up why Alabama fell. Because if you missed it, the AP poll came out. Auburn's still number one, unanimous in the AP poll. Alabama fell from 4 to 6. And then lastly, we have another recommendation from Molly coming in. It says 95% isopropyl alcohol will clear you right up, Molly.
Good to know. Thank you.
You're supposed to drink that, or
I
don't think that's.
I don't know if I want to drink that.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, appreciate all of you chiming in with remedies for Molly and her sore throat. 205-834-9450 will get you on the courtesy GMC text line.
More three-man front on this Reaction Monday. This is Jocks 94.5. It is 1:33, Jocks 94.5 on this Reaction Monday. The Paul Feinbaum Show will be coming up at the top of the hour. Paul will have a review of the weekend and everything that went on in SEC basketball. Let's do some Pat Ponders. It's brought to you each and every day by our friends at Courtesy GMC. Brought to you by Courtesy GMC in Trustful. Visit them in person right off of I-459 exit 32 on Edwards Lake Road next to Lowe's. Courtesy GMC, courtesybirmingham.com. All right, question number 1. Oklahoma's Duke Miles, a Montgomery native who played at Troy, lost some teeth Saturday while diving on the floor for a loose ball versus Mississippi State. What was the most quirky injury you've ever had playing a sport?
Oh, and I don't know if I would consider this, it's quirky. It's not an injury in the sense that it was like a long-standing injury, but I, my senior year of high school, during a baseball game, I was a catcher. And so I went to go and block a ball in the dirt, and it came up and hit me in the throat. And I guess, according to the trainer, she said it must have cut off some oxygen to my brain because I couldn't see for about 3 or 4 minutes. I was just in like darkness. I couldn't see anything. And it scared the, you know what?
Did it remind you of the cave incident?
It was before the cave incident. So maybe it was
that might explain
foreshadowing.
Cut the oxygen off.
That's right.
Falls in the cave.
That must have been it. But yeah, so I got hit by a ball in the throat, and the trainer had to come out there and help walk me off and sit me on the bench. And
were you not wearing the throat guard underneath your face mask?
No, I didn't like wearing that.
Oh, well, there you go. How about you, Molly?
For me, it was my junior year of high school. It was like during one of our routines that we were practicing, like at my dance studio. And I had gotten a concussion, and it was because like I was on the ground and this girl was coming up, and we were like too close to each other, and my like forehead hit her tailbone, like smacked it. And I was out for I couldn't go to school for like 3 weeks because I hit it pretty hard, and I like blacked out, like kind of like you, Conrad. I couldn't see for a good like minute or so because I hit it that hard.
It's freaky.
Concussions scare me.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is freaky. I'll throw this one in there too. This wasn't an injury that I sustained while technically playing a sport, but when I was in college, me and my friends were walking back from Bryant-Denny one Saturday, and anybody that is familiar with Tuscaloosa, you know, on University, you have the practice field, or I guess the band field, where they practice right next to that Arby's. And so we're walking back there, and, you know, we've been having, you know, some adult beverages at the game and having a good time. And we walk back, and one of my buddies goes, "How fast do you think you can run a 40-yard dash?" So I went over there to the practice field, and I go and start running a 40-yard dash. I probably made about 20, 30 yards, and I fell, and I hit my knee went straight into the ground, and I ended up having a bruised kneecap. And it was bad. I had blood running all down my knee, but I had a bruised knee, and I had to get like crutches to walk around for a week to go to classes because I'd hurt myself so bad trying to run a 40-yard dash. So
that's what liquid courage will do to you.
Do not try to sprint at top speed, which is not very fast for me, but don't do that when you're a little inebriated.
Yeah, if you saw the video of
it was bad.
No, I can't.
Supposedly it was more not like knocking the whole teeth out. Ugh. It was breaking off.
Okay, so he chipped the teeth more than them.
Because Porter Moser said in the post-game press conference that he had seen him in the locker room, and, you know, obviously they were dealing with
just the video, just watching the guy have to come and pick him up off the floor.
Picking up the chiclets.
That I just cannot imagine how bad that has to hurt. Have you ever chipped a tooth before? Like really chipped a tooth?
Yeah, I was wrestling. Just barely, but I was wrestling around with one of my kids.
Yeah,
and like he came up with a forearm and popped me in the mouth.
It's not fun. I chipped my tooth when I was a kid, and not fun.
Question number 2. Yesterday was the 40th anniversary of Indiana coach Bobby Knight infamously throwing a chair across the court versus Purdue. What was the most outlandish display of a coach or manager you can remember? You can either have been in attendance or you could just seen it on TV or YouTube. The most outlandish coaching response, whether it was an argument or just getting ticked off at the ref or a player.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of all time. I will say my favorite from this past year or so was definitely Dan Hurley going up to the referees and telling them, I'm the best coach in this.
That was good.
Dan Hurley in general this season, and like what he did at Creighton too.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that one. I'm trying to think of other. I'm just thinking recently here. Shane Beamer, breaking his foot on the cooler.
Him and Brett Bielema, that whole.
That was that was always very, very entertaining. Who was it? Was it anytime you get a manager in baseball that picks up the base and throws it, and I feel like we've seen that more in the minor leagues than in the major leagues recently, but that gets me every time.
Mine would probably be Dan Hurley from this year. I don't know. I can't really think of anything else.
There's about 20 Nick Saban ones we could go through.
Well, for me, if you remember, he was a manager in the minor leagues by, I think his name is Philip Wellman. He's the one that got kicked out, and then he literally got on his belly and started acting like he was throwing hand grenades. Do you remember the viral video of that?
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I think he got behind the mound and he got the rosin bag and he actually looked like he was pulling a pin of a hand grenade. And he was on the.
Okay.
That one was good. Yeah.
This wasn't during a game, but can we put Dabo in there with what was him? Tyler from Spartanburg.
Yeah.
Can we put that in that category?
There was another one.
That wasn't great.
Yeah.
Oh, that one was so good. I'm glad you brought that up. I had forgotten about it.
You remember it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was on the diamond for a very long time.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, the umpires just sat there and said, "Okay, let's just watch the show."
Oh yeah.
Just go for it. Knock yourself out. I also found it interesting that that they actually had the chair that he threw across that they sat in during the game, and they beat Purdue.
I know. I thought that was awesome.
That was pretty cool. All right, next question. So Drink Local Birmingham on X, he passed this Pat Ponders question along, and I appreciate that very much. If you ever have any Pat Ponders questions, I welcome them. Follow me on Twitter at Pat Smith Radio. Send me a tweet, and I'll use them. But Drink Local Birmingham on X, he passed this question along. Which is better, SEC basketball or SEC baseball this year?
I mean, I guess it's baseball. I mean, you got 4 of the top 5
it's
teams.
Easy to say baseball.
I was about to say you got 4 of the top 5 teams. You've got, I think, 11 of the top 25, 11 of the top 25 teams. Plus, you've got Alabama and Auburn that aren't in the top 25, and they're right there kind of knocking on the door with how they've started things off. So I think just with basketball, we're not used to it being at this level. So it feels like maybe it's not saying it's better than it is, but with baseball, the SEC has been really good at baseball for a long time, right? So it's not as big of a surprise. But yeah, I mean, I think with Texas and Oklahoma both coming into the league now, it's got to be baseball.
And plus, how many national championships has the SEC won in baseball the last, I don't know, decade plus?
As compared to basketball.
Right, yeah. It's baseball.
Yep.
Next question. According to the NHL, there have been 5 total fights in a best-on-best international tournament. Before, there were 3 in 9 seconds.
I was about to say, so 3 of them came the other night.
So there were 5 total before the other night when you had 3 in 9 seconds. Now, 10 million people in our country tuned in for the championship between Canada and the United States, which would have made it the 19th most watched college football game from the previous season. So put that in comparison. Now, if the Four Nations hockey tournament was played every year, would this become must-see television for you as a sports fan?
For me, absolutely. I also like hockey, though. Like, I enjoy watching hockey even during the regular season. And plus, it's, America. I'm going to support anything. Especially if we're up against Canada.
That's true. Well, they're one of us. Or they will be mine. No, I'm going to say no. And the reason for that is just because if you have it every year, it takes some of the allure away from it, right? Like if the Olympics were every year, it wouldn't be as special, at least in my opinion. I'm sure there's some people out there that disagree, but I think having certain events like that where you have to wait for it, like the World Cup, like the Olympics, it drums up that kind of anticipation and it gives you more time for there to be animosity between the two groups, right? Like now, the next time that the United States and Canada play, you know, we will have had to wait so long that will those tensions have boiled over? Maybe they won't. Maybe things will be, you know, better, but I think if you have something like this every year, it kind of takes a little of the luster away, at least for me.
All right. Final question of today. On Friday, 105-year-old Sister Jean was at her typical Loyola men's basketball game as they took on DePaul, 105 years old. Also in attendance, the Wildberry Pop-Tart mascot. And he was caught on video giving Sister Jean a fist bump while he was at the game. So I started thinking, how many Pop-Tarts in Sister Jean's lifetime do you believe she has eaten?
It's a great question.
105 years old.
I'm going to say half of one, and it was after that incident. She said, you know what? I need to try one of those.
So you think she had never had a Pop-Tart until the Wildberry Pop-Tart mascot gave her a fist bump?
She just strikes me as a toaster strudel kind of
I
lady.
say, I don't know if I see her as a Pop-Tart girl.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say no.
How long have Pop-Tarts been around?
Let's see.
So you're trying to say that Sister Jean is older than the Pop-Tart itself?
Well, no, I was just trying to.
Okay, 1964, so about 60 years ago. So she would have been in her 40s when they came around.
That's what I was wondering. Like if they were around like when she was a kid. Because I don't
Okay,
really
so
eat Pop-Tarts.
65 years in her lifetime, she's had the availability of purchasing and enjoying a Pop-Tart.
I'm going to go with like maybe 3.
Conrad said a half of one. That was it.
She wanted to try it after she fist bumped.
I'm going to go maybe 3. I don't think she's had very many.
What do you think, Pat?
I could not find an interview. I was hoping to find an interview of her where she like said, like, what is the secret of you being 105 years old?
Maybe she eats a Pop-Tart every day.
And we just don't know it, yeah. Wildberry.
That's like, isn't it like Warren Buffett that drinks like 5 or 6 sodas a day or something? Like he just has this outrageous diet, but he gets 8 hours of sleep every night and he's healthy somehow.
Yeah. It was a cool picture of. Did you see it?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
That is very cool. That is one of the, that's one of the moments from the NCAA tournament that then has carried over into now every year. It makes Loyola at least somewhat relevant because of Sister Jean. And that's the kind of stuff that I love that stuff. It's awesome.
That will do it for today's Pat Ponders, brought to you by Courtesy GMC and Trustful. And I've been telling you about the Sierra AT4X. You need to get by and see this incredible truck. It is top of the line. The best part, if you look at other GMC dealerships around the Southeast, no one has the price of the AT4X lower than Courtesy GMC and Trustful. No one. Even the Florida dealerships in the Panhandle, you're not going to find it anywhere. Courtesy can save you thousands today on the brand new Sierra AT4X. Other dealerships do not have the inventory as deep as Courtesy GMC or the outstanding prices on the AT4X. $11,000 off MSRP, multiple to choose from. And how about the SLT Premium Plus package on trucks? Those are very hard to come by, and they're almost gone there at Courtesy GMC. So take advantage of that because there's $11,000 off MSRP on that. And don't forget about the 2025 Sierra Denali, up to $13,000 off MSRP. Get by and see them. Check out their inventory online. That is courtesybirmingham.com. More of Three Man Front as we put a bow on this edition, as Paul Feinbaum will come up at the top of the hour. This is Jocks 94.5. Conrad's favorite song. I heard him playing in the office before the show today.
Who is this? What is this?
Oh, don't act like you don't
Come
know.
on.
You were playing in the office. You were sitting in Landrum's chair in his office, and you had this on your iPod.
I don't think I've ever heard this song before.
This is NSYNC.
Oh, now he's acting like Damien.
yeah.
Now he's acting like, oh, I don't know who that is.
I know who it is. I just
No, you're faking it.
haven't done a deep dive into their
whatever.
Don't listen to boy bands. I'm sorry.
All right, let's try to get through as many text messages as we can on the Courtesy GMC text line because it has been a very active reaction Monday, and we can't thank you enough for communicating and being a part of the show that way.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. That's the number for the Courtesy GMC text line. Some people weighing in on Pat Ponders. We have Walker responding to your question, Pat, about the weirdest injury, I guess, that quirkiest injury that you had sustained by playing sports. Walker texting, he says, I had stitches in the face after receiving an elbow to the face during a rugby match.
Oh, rugby. That's tough.
Yeah, elbow to the face is absolutely no joke. Oh my gosh. Ryan texted in, curious as to how this happened. This is awful. He says, I dislocated 8 ribs from my spine once. Didn't even know that was possible.
Wait. Say that again.
He said he dislocated 8 ribs from his spine.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds horrible, Ryan. And I have to admit, I'm a little curious as to how that happened.
Yeah, he didn't say what he was playing.
No.
When that happened?
Nope.
Wow.
That, whew. All right. Oh, God. I don't want to read this one. Somebody says, talking about sports injuries, a friend of mine in high school went to dunk a basketball, came down, and his teeth got caught in the net, and it broke his 6 teeth. His 6 front teeth came out. Oh, that's...
So his teeth got caught in the net.
And it ripped him out. Oh, that's... I don't know what's worse, that one or the 8 ribs. Those are.
Did you ever?
Oh, I just can't imagine that. Oh.
Did you ever hear former UNLV basketball player Mark Anthony? Did you ever hear that horrible story about him when he had a broken jaw and he had his mouth wired up?
No.
Have you heard that before?
Molly doesn't seem interested in the story.
Well, she can turn the monitors down in there if she didn't want to hear it.
I know.
Did you never hear that story?
No, what happened?
So he had his mouth wired.
Yeah.
And he got nauseous.
Oh, no.
And so he literally had to find some wire cutters so that he could.
Yeah, vomit.
Yes.
Whew. Okay.
Now, I mean, when I heard that, I was like, that's one of the worst things.
That is bad.
Did you hear it, Molly? Oh, she took her headphones off.
Yeah, it's good. You didn't.
So, Molly, this is what happened.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say it. But just listen to it on the podcast. You'll enjoy it.
I'd rather not.
Make you feel better.
See, somebody texted in and says that they got, during a high school football game, they got the worst bruise they've ever had after taking an elbow to a certain region. And it took a very long time to recover from that. Yep, that one would be bad. I've had similar incident.
With an elbow to that portion of your body?
It was a knee. Unfortunately.
What were you doing?
Just playing like tackle football outside. Yeah, no, you're gonna make it weird now.
I was just asking a question. I didn't know if you were playing leapfrog or I don't know what you were doing up in Hayden.
I don't. Do you know what a zygomatic arch is? What part of what is it?
Would it have something to do with your foot?
Let's see.
No,
it is
not.
Part of your
brain,
skull. Oh, okay. So yeah, he's saying like the story I was telling about how I got hit by the ball in the dirt. It came up, hit me in the throat, and I wasn't able to see. I went blind for a couple of minutes because I lost oxygen to my brain. Somebody texted in and says, yeah, I broke 2/3 of my zygomatic arch doing the same thing that Conrad did. That is not good. That is not good. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Matt in Birmingham says, me and my cousin were playing baseball and we ran out of baseballs, so we started using golf balls. Well, I caught a line drive straight to my ear. My ear bled for about an hour and I couldn't hear for a couple of days.
Gosh. I'd never heard that.
That's what you get for
no baseballs around. Let's just use golf balls.
Within golf ball. And then finally, some people texting in with the biggest coaching freakouts. Let's see. Mike from Shreveport says Hal McRae's phone destruction in his office was great.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one.
Let's see. Somebody says Will Muschamp foaming at the mouth during one of the Iron Bowls.
That's like every one of them, right?
Yeah. And then Dan texts in, he says John Chaney versus Coach Cal.
That was good too.
So a lot of great responses there. Appreciate you all texting in.
Paul Feinbaum Show's next. Have a great Monday.